and a little bit of rain for a time, but turning drier behind it with largely clear skies, and any showers across Scotland are going to clear away through the night too. Under the clear skies, turning a little bit chilly, particularly across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Here, fairly widespread frost, perhaps even a touch of frost further south. Through Sunday itself then, high pressure dominating, and so it is going to be a settled day across much of the UK. Plenty of winter sunshine around, though that sunshine is going to be quite hazy at times because of some high level cloud. We'll also have light winds, but despite the light winds and the sunshine, it is going to be a little bit chillier than through today, albeit not feeling too bad because of the winter sunshine. As we go through the end of the day on Sunday, little change across much of England and Wales, though thickening cloud across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, some gusty winds here too, and perhaps a few spots of rain, particularly for Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles. Where we hold on to the clear skies and the light winds across England and Wales, it is going to turn very chilly indeed. Even in towns and cities, we're likely to fall a couple of degrees below freezing in some places, and so a widespread harsh frost and also some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing on Monday. Through the day itself then, Monday starting off bright across England and Wales, but cloud encroaching from the northwest, so turning cloudy as we go through the day. Quite a cloudy picture through much of the day across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and some gusty winds too, and a few spots of rain. Staying changeable across the north through the rest of the week, sunnier, drier towards the south, but quite chilly with some frost and fog overnight.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 8 o'clock, Saturday night. This is Mark Dolan tonight with me, Neil Fox, looking after it. 3 hours of big debate big opinion and big entertainment are coming your way. So please sit back, relax and enjoy the ride. But we start, as always, with the People's Hour. Tonight we're going to be debating, how do we tackle sleaze in politics? Should energy companies pay more in tax? Is King Charles the monarch of the people? And should we be punishing criminals or rehabilitating them? But first, let's get the latest news with Aaron Armstrong.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Officers investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley are appealing for a key witness who they believe was in the area that morning. The witness is a woman wearing a yellow coat who was seen on CCTV pushing a pram in the area where the dog walker disappeared. The 45-year-old mother of two was last seen walking her dog in Lancashire last Friday. Nicola's family have questioned a police theory that she fell into the river, and her friend Heather says it's taking a heavy toll.
As a friend of Nikki, I am struggling to see how we can take a theory as a conclusion. Nikki, we need evidence to know where Nikki is, and as far as I'm aware, they have not found any evidence. Saw Paul and Nick's parents and sister last night. They're heartbroken. They are living a living hell. And on top of that, they have all the speculation that comes out to deal with. It's too much, it's not fair.
A number of houses have been evacuated in the Derbyshire town of Belper after a man was arrested on suspicion of having explosives in his house. So officers were called to a property in Acorn Drive yesterday evening, and a search uncovered a number of suspicious items. A 100-metre cordon remains in place, and nearby roads have been closed as bomb disposal experts assess the property. Police say they don't know how long the closures will be in place for. A suspected Chinese spy balloon has been shot down off the southeastern coast of the United States. It follows flights being suspended at 3 US airports, including Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. That was a short time ago for what authorities described as a national security effort. Well, earlier, President Joe Biden said the US would take care of the surveillance balloon that's been flying in US airspace. Washington says it's a clear violation of the country's sovereignty. China maintains, though, it was a civilian weather airship which had been blown off course. The bodies of two British aid workers who died during a humanitarian evacuation have been returned to Ukrainian authorities. The families of Chris Parry and Andrew Bagshaw say the pair were attempting to rescue an elderly woman from the eastern town of Solidar in early January. The bodies were returned as part of a prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine, which involved nearly 200 people. And that comes as the Prime Minister spoke with President Zelensky on the phone earlier. Rishi Sunak says he's committed to ensuring military equipment reaches the front line as quickly as possible, including tanks. Ukrainian soldiers began training in the UK earlier this week on Challenger 2 battle tanks, which Britain has agreed to supply to Kyiv. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it is back to Neil Fox on Mark Dolan Tonight.
Right, welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Neil Fox, and we start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls on the big stories of the day. Now, tonight, the stars of the show are... we got Zachary in Leicester. Hey, Zachary. We've got Andrew in Dudley. Hello there, Andrew. We've got Sue in Cheshire. Good evening, Sue. Welcome along. Norma in the Canary Islands.
Hi.
Please don't... hope you're enjoying the sunshine. Hello there. And Amanda in East Sussex as well. Hello there, Amanda. Nice wave. Right, we'll be hearing a lot from them over the next hour. Now, following weeks of embarrassment and allegations of misconduct for the government, how do we tackle sleaze in our politics? And with energy giant Shell this week reporting profits of £32 billion, the highest in over a century, I'll be asking, Should energy firms be paying more tax? King Charles is set to open up 3 royal residences to be used as warm spaces to help those struggling with the cost of living crisis. So I'll be asking my viewers, is King Charles III the monarch of the people? And finally, a rehabilitation scheme from West Midlands Police has reportedly saved local businesses an estimated £800,000 by tackling shoplifting in the region. So I want to know, should criminals be punished or rehabilitated? And my Saturday sidekick for the first hour of this evening's show is author and journalist Ella Whelan. In my big opinion, to strike or not to strike, that is the question. I'll be giving my view on the public sector walkouts. That's from 9 o'clock tonight. In the big question, following the decision by Welsh Rugby to ban Tom Jones's Delilah, I'll be asking whether music should be censored. And in the news agenda with my panel, should over 50s be incentivised to return to work? Have we fallen out of love with film as well? And are you prepared to eat bugs for breakfast? I'm serious, it's not that icky. We'll talk about it later on. I'll be discussing all those stories and much more with legendary pop duo Right Said Fred, could be fun, and journalist and political commentator Lizzie Zita. Plus tomorrow's Sunday's papers from 10:20 right through until 11 o'clock. My goodness, a busy 3 hours to come. So put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle. Let's have a night to remember. If you'd like to be one of the brilliant GB viewers who make the People's Hour so much fun, please do get in touch with us. You can email mark@gbnews.uk. Now, I'm joined for the hour by author and journalist Ella Whelan. Evening, Ellen. How are you? I have to be honest, you've had a very busy week this week, having you on Question Time. A huge show. Lots of talk about that show. How was it for you?
It was fine. Well, you know, it's one of the... I think the BBC Question Time team are to be commended because it's an issue that a lot of channels, not including this one, but a lot of channels are still very nervous about touching. It was we had a discussion about strikes, we had a discussion about the government and growth and productivity, but the main part of the programme was about because it was in Glasgow with a Glaswegian audience, it was about the Scottish Gender Recognition Reform Bill and the fallout from Nicola Sturgeon's response to the prisoner Adam Graham, who called himself Isla Bryson, and whether or not he was going to be kept in a women's prison or not. And you know, it was very tense at times, and there were some very disappointing answers from some of the politicians. The SNP's representative Jenny Gilruth refused to tell us and the audience whether or not she thought that and believed that Adam Graham was a man or not. Kept saying this individual is a rapist. I mean, no one's disputing that. I mean, He's been, charged and sent to jail. And I think probably the reason why it's caused something of a stir is because, I was only really putting forward the position about, I said that sex was real and irrefutable, that most people consider to be as mundane as saying that the sky is blue and the grass is green. And why it's become such a kind of a difficult thing to talk about, I think shows the intensity of some of particularly a kind of a small group of trans activists who want to kind of create a censorious atmosphere around this issue. And I think there's probably quite a few women who are sick of that and want to try and puncture it.
Well, we're not going to be talking about that over the next hour.
Thank God.
I think it's been talked about a lot, clearly, on this channel, and obviously yourself on Thursday. Let's meet our viewers this evening, though, that obviously make this hour so interesting, so exciting. The viewers, obviously, of GB News, the People's Hour, where we take your video calls on topics that have got you talking. So, first on the agenda tonight, with Rishi Sunak's government being marred by scandal and allegations of bullying by the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, I'm asking, how do we tackle sleaze in politics? Now, to discuss this, let's first bring in Norma, who joins us from the sunshine of the Canary Islands. Norma, welcome along. Very nice to chat to you, and thanks for sharing your Saturday night with us. So, please, your views. How do we clean up sleaze in politics?
Well, what happened to good old-fashioned ethics and morality? You know? I mean, take the tune that Mick Jagger sings, Strange Game. I mean, it says it all, really, but it's a very old-fashioned view of morality, you know, that people get done and it's very hard to get back into the game and play with the big boys again. But, you know, little Matty Hancock is doing his best and hopefully not succeeding. But and the whole thing is an absolute disaster. And I feel very, very sorry for... I'm a floating voter, by the way. I'm not Labour or Conservative. I vote, you know, whatever the issue is of the day. And I'm afraid the Conservative Party is really suffering at the moment because the sleaze is absolutely... It's like Blackpool Rock. It's right down the middle. And in my view, it started with Boris. I don't think the Conservative Party has always been like this. The Conservative Party, for me, has always represented a lot of people who are very... I know some people think it's rather elitist and all the rest of it, and Eton and Oxbridge and etc. And I'm a little bit that way. But these people, the traditional Tory voter, has got really good values. And the values that are being expressed now are just... it's a disaster.
Okay.
Because it's like everybody just does what they want. And
Norma, let me bring in Amanda in East Sussex just for a moment, just to sort of get her view on this. Amanda, welcome along to the show. Amanda, hello there, how are you?
Hi.
So we know Norma's view on this one, and obviously maybe about how she feels about the Conservative Party as a whole at the moment. About this issue, though, specifically, say Dominic Raab this week, which has dominated the news once again, do you think Rishi is maybe right to let due process take its right path and then act, or should this be something that's just sorted out straight away?
No, I really do believe that Rishi has to allow due process to play out here, because one of the main problems that we have in this country at the moment is there seems to be a lack of respect for the rule of law. And the rule of law in this country clearly states that anyone who is accused of any allegation whatsoever is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the problem we have in this woke agenda day and age is that a small minority of people, particularly on the left, are very invested in trying to smear anyone in the Conservative Party or anyone on the Conservative side in general to such an extent that they ruin their lives just by the smear campaign. And that at the moment is what is going on with Dominic Raab. It's all allegations. None of it is proven. None of it has been heard in a court of law, for instance. So, in which case, he needs to be given the time and the space to have his day in front of Rishi to be able to decide whether all of these allegations are true or not. And then Rishi has to make his mind up as the Prime Minister as to whether he keeps him in his role or whether he lets him go. But if we keep giving in to these mob mentality tactics whereby you can just smear anyone you like to get rid of them and cancel them, which is all part of cancel culture, we will have no politicians left in the Conservative Party whatsoever, because this is what the people on the left want. They want to take down the Conservative Party, and that's what's going on.
Amanda, I would say, actually, I mean, maybe it's not just the left trying to take down the right. I would say that we have had trial by media, sadly, for many years now in this country, and it's happening around the world. But if we look at our country on many issues, whether it's celebrities or football players, or once it's out in the press, it's very hard, actually, to actually be innocent until proven guilty. Ella, what do you... I mean, do you find this as well? It's so, as a journalist yourself, once it's out there... I mean, look, you've had, I'm sure, many comments this week about yourself. And, of course, once it's out in the media, it's very hard to get those headlines off.
Yes, well, I mean, as a journalist, I'm a great believer and defender of freedom of the press. So I think that the, journalists and commentators and, gossip mongers should be free to do what they do. And you would hope that the political class are able to kind of have the confidence to rise above it, because the thing that strikes me particularly about Dominic Raab is that, look, no one here was in the room, so we don't know what went on. But the allegations are described as, Dominic Raab has been accused of belittling someone. Now, I mean, call me cold-hearted, but I really don't think that's such a big deal. I've read some of the descriptions in some. I'm sure the guy is a piece of work when he gets going. Who am I to sort of judge on that? But there is a sort of sense of, particularly in relation to allegations of bullying in Parliament, a lot of this is sounding very kind of school playground-esque. And there are lots of things to criticise this current government about, not being able to pay their tax, giving out contracts to people who they have relationships with, genuine kind of allegations of corruption, and also just a basic, complete mismanagement of the economy, of the NHS, of the list is very long. I'm no fan of the Conservative Party, but to bring them down on the basis of them being a little bit mean to sort of some civil servants, some ministers. I mean, you don't want to sound like a kind of glorifying bad behaviour, but politics is a dirty game. Yeah. I mean,
well, life is tough sometimes, and yeah. I guess unless we were in the room, unless we can find out exactly what was said. We're all talking about it now without really having any knowledge of what was said. And hopefully we will find out. I just want to bring in our viewers again. Norma, obviously you were talking about the Conservative Party sort of in general, about your feelings about them, about this specific issue. I think Ella brings up a very good point. None of us really know what was said in the room. And if it is all about, well, he was just a bit tough and talked to people in a harsh way, life sometimes can be tough. Is that any reason to sack someone and ask them to step down from their job?
Well, I always thought that Dominic Raab was a really nice guy, and when he winked at Angela Rayner in Parliament that time, a few weeks ago, I thought, oh, he's quite a racy guy, nice guy. He's always come across as really, really sweet. But there's been 24 allegations, or I think in the press recently I saw maybe there were even 40. Now, I accept the fact that you shouldn't be condemned and pilloried and all the rest of it without evidence, but the suggestion of between 24 and 40 allegations of bullying. I also accept that bullying is a very subjective experience and that some people could be a bit too thin-skinned. I accept that totally, and that particularly women should really start to more stand up for themselves and not be, flaky and moany about everything. I understand all of that, but I've been bullied myself at work. And, and particularly when you're in potentially power positions in Parliament and you're trying to get on, you can't say anything and you're powerless. And I think that sometimes these people, and sometimes, in the main it tends to be men, they can take advantage of their position and be a bit up themselves. And,
okay.
Norma, you can't ignore.
Can I just cut you off for 1 second? I want to bring in Amanda just briefly on this one as maybe a final word on this specific issue, maybe sleaze in general, but this case, Dominic Raab, we don't really know. Your view? Should he go?
Do you know what? I don't think he should, Neil, and I'll tell you why. I think a lot of what is happening here, it's a case of, I think they're trying to make an example of him to enable their cause to eradicate toxic masculinity, which is another part of the cancel culture woke agenda. And I think really that's what's behind all of this massive smear campaign against Dominic Raab. I don't believe for 1 minute there are 40 plus allegations against him. I'm sure that over half of them are not even real allegations, or really real rather than just allegations. So I think a lot of this is to do with trying to make an example of him as a way of getting rid of someone who they view as being toxic masculinity.
All right, well, I appreciate your views on that. I guess hopefully we will find out in due course in the days and week ahead, maybe how many allegations there are, so that we actually do know some facts on this one. But for now, Amanda and Norma, thank you. Ella will be back, of course, coming up in light of energy giant Shell reportedly making an eye-watering $30 billion in profit. We ask, should energy companies be paying more tax? You won't want to miss it. Get involved. See you in a few.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
and right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView, Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hey, welcome back to the People's Hour. Now, energy giant Shell this week caused a stir after it was revealed that they took home a staggering £32 billion in profits, their highest margin for over a century. Now, with the cost of living crisis still crippling many families across the nation, right, should energy companies be paying more tax? Joining me from Leicester to talk about this one, Zachary, welcome to Saturday Night. Very nice to have you. What's your view then? Yes or no? Should they be paying more tax?
Thank you.
They should. Just to put this in perspective, because I wanted to know this one, it was 32 billion over a turnover of 81 billion, which is actually a pretty healthy profit margin, I have to be honest there. So that's about 40%. So why do you think they should be paying more tax? Because I'm sure technically, legally, they're paying what they owe at the moment. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed to get away with it. Do you think they need to be paying a higher percentage than other companies?
Forgive me, Neil, I wasn't about to say that they should be paying more tax, rather that they already are, aren't they? Because presumably if they're making additional profits, they are paying more tax through the normal means of tax collection. But that's not enough, is it? Because apparently they're paying more anyway because of the Energy Profits Levy, which I think is a 25% surcharge on these extraordinary profits, as gov.uk describes them. And I believe it's proposed to go up to a 35% additional levy. So they are paying more tax through these extraordinary, again, profits. And when I hear about windfall tax, I first heard of it just over 20 years ago. I think it was proposed in Gordon Brown's era when he was Chancellor, when I think oil prices were up and oil company profits were up. And I remember at the time I got quite a sinking feeling, giving way to a mild depression at the thought of this kind of intervention. And in fact, I wrote a letter to the Daily Mail to protest about it, and I never heard another word about it. Now, I'm not saying I'm responsible for it not being applied 20-odd years ago, but it did suggest to me that it might have been one of these eye-catching initiatives that the governments are so fond of, particularly governments that might be struggling. And if we look back a little further for precedents, I think in 1981 there was a temporary extra tax on banks profiting from high interest rates. 1997, a tax on the increased value of privatised companies. Now, these were new governments at the time, whereas this, of course, is the fag end of a rather listless and tired administration. But it does seem to me that it is politically motivated. And it's not even original, because Labour would probably say they stole the idea, the Conservative government stole the idea from them. So it's a borrowed idea in circumstances that seem to me more about popular measures than any serious attempt to rebalance the economy.
OK. Zachary, let's bring in Ella again here, because, look, we have had a long, cold winter so far, and this cost of living crisis has hit everyone. But there are families out there that really are making that awful choice: do I heat or do I eat? Which is insane in this day and age in our country. The numbers, the figures are enormous, 32 billion. Do you think they should be charged extra tax? Obviously, anyone watching this now, particularly if you're really struggling and paying these enormous bills, which they've all gone up like 3 or 4 times in our households, they're struggling with this, and you see these numbers, and it kind of makes you feel sick.
Yeah, but this is capitalism, and this is what happens. It strikes me as sort of, well, it's not surprising that big business like this is making us happy to make these kind of profits, and you would be waiting all day if you were waiting cap in hand to have some kind of handout from them. It's just not how it works. But there are measures that the government can take. I mean, Zachary mentioned a windfall tax, and obviously that was floated by Labour, taken up then sort of quite quickly by the Conservatives, but the actual amount of money that amounted to was a pittance in terms of trying to solve the issue of people not being able to pay their energy bills. You could do that a little bit more if you want. You could do, there are lots of political decisions that a government could take. Look at France and the way it has nationalised its energy provision with EDF. There are options on the table. But in terms of the long-term issue of not just energy prices, but also energy production, the much bigger question is, what can a government do to provide more and cheaper energy for its citizens? And, neither the Conservatives nor the Labour Party have any kind of exciting plans in relation to nuclear, or indeed, both, but particularly the Labour Party, incredibly cagey about tapping reserves in the North Sea in relation to oil. There is a kind of obsession with green energy, which, I think most people on the planet think that, if you can cook up energy from wind turbines for solar power, brilliant, why not? Let's do it. Any kind of those renewables, let's give it a go. Anything that produces energy is a good thing. But as we know from the long, cold winter, sometimes the wind doesn't blow and sometimes the sun doesn't shine. And I think that's the bigger issue, is what a government's plan is to actually create not just more energy, but energy security, to not be reliant on, for example, energy production from other countries.
Okay.
That's the question I'm more interested in.
Let's bring Zachary back in. Zachary, if you were sitting there in government right now, we have an energy crisis, and how we power our nation is clearly very important. If we could do everything green, it would be fantastic, but it comes at a cost, of course. How would you change things?
Well, Ella was talking about what she would like to hear from government about what they could do in regard to provision of more energy, better energy, cheaper energy. If it were me in government, I would be minded to let the oil and gas and energy companies get on with it, giving them incentives to do all of the great things that Ella envisages them doing, but not looking upon it as me in government to do it for them. Surely the role of government is to create the right conditions so that private companies can flourish and do what is necessary to provide the services that people want. If they make these so-called extraordinary profits along the way, good luck to them, and the government will collect more tax as a consequence of those profits.
OK. There has been sort of talk, hasn't there, about, and now let's just ask you this, but about having, say, a new nationalised energy company to try and look at this problem so that actually, profits are ploughed back into that rather than going into private shareholders' pockets. Would that be a great idea?
It could be a great idea, and "could" is the important word, because, for example, there are lots of things that have been privatised over the last sort of 10, 20, 30 years that governments basically promised would be much better than the old nationalised systems, and they've proven not to be. What you need is, Zachary's kind of, hinted at this, you need a government that has a clear plan, the authority, and the kind of the gumption, the guts to go ahead with a kind of something inspiring, something along the lines of investment, a kind of a big idea. And you can't point to any politician at the moment who has it. And I know that sounds very defeatist of me, but there does, perhaps where I would disagree with Zachary is I think you do need a government that is quite interventionist, that does actually put pressure on, energy companies are not going to say, do you know what we fancy doing at the moment is taking a big risk on a new power plant and risking loads of money. They're not going to do that unless you lean on them. So I would like a government that did a little bit more sharp-elbowed.
All right. Zachary, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Have a nice evening in Leicester. Keep watching GB News tonight. Ella, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Join me after the break, where we'll be discussing whether King Charles III is the monarch of the people. After it's revealed the sovereign will be opening up 3 royal residences to help those struggling with the cost of living. Please don't go anywhere. Back in 3.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
So I was just singing along to the jingle there. Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. I'm Neil Fox. Nice to have you watching now. This is the People's Hour. We've been told this week that King Charles III is set to open up 3 of his royal residences to be used as warm spaces to help those suffering with the ongoing cost of living crisis. Just months into his reign, does this move prove that King Charles is in fact the monarch of the people? Well, joining me now is a good friend of the show. It's Sue in Cheshire. Sue, welcome along. Nice to have you on tonight. What do you think then? King Charles III, how's he doing so far? Is he the monarch of the people?
I think he's going to go that way. I think he's a very caring bloke. He's very sensitive. And I think he's more in touch with the people than a lot of people give him credit for. I think sometimes he ought to listen to William a bit more, because I think he's got to differentiate between being a dad and being a monarch. Because the furore over Harry is something that I think is very difficult for him, because obviously he is a dad. But his coronation is not a family affair. It's a state affair. So I think he's got to listen to his people on that one as well.
OK. Do you think, I'm sort of inferring from that, you think he should probably make sure that Harry and Meghan don't turn up at the coronation, is that right?
Yeah, because I think if they do turn up, I think there's a high likelihood of them getting really booed, and that will spoil his coronation for him.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of press attention will clearly be on them if they turn up, rather than what was meant to be the main event of the day. That is for sure. I mean, one thing that struck me about this whole story was how many residences are there? Because they must have an awful lot. And my family and I, we were discussing it earlier on today over lunch. Just, gosh, do they need to start getting rid of some of these palaces? Do they have much? Too much? I mean, how much land do they own in this country? And in this new monarchy, when we're heard everything's going to be slightly slimmed down now, a new slimmed down royal family, do you think maybe actually some of these palaces, castles, houses maybe need to be removed from royal ownership and given back to the people full time?
Well, of course, they don't all belong to the royal family anyway. But I don't think we'd be telling other people in the private sector to get rid of houses because we think they've got too many. You know, a lot of landlords have got, I've seen landlords with over 1,000 properties, and nobody's telling them to sell them, are they?
No, but they've obviously bought them. If they've obviously bought them,
if they actually belong to them,
in the sort of normal way, and these have been given to them. Let me just bring in Ella here, if I may. Ella, so I know, Ella, you are not necessarily the world's greatest royalist or monarchist, but just as a monarch, King Charles, it's a really tough act to follow. Queen Elizabeth II was incredible. 70 years of amazing service to this nation, hardly ever putting a foot wrong. A pretty tough act to follow. How do you think he's doing so far?
Well, I mean, the lad's only been in the job a little while, so I suppose you should probably give him a bit of space to see how, give him a bit of time and space to see how he gets on. But the reason why, even someone like me who wants to abolish the monarchy and has no interest in who comes to any coronation and the rest of it, can understand that the reason why the late Queen was so popular and was such a successful monarch was because she drew a very clear line in terms of what she said, in terms of private lives and the public life of the crown, of the monarch. And we know that from Charles's history as the Prince of Wales. He was very, very vocal, much more so than his mother in terms of, political issues. He made it very clear what were his kind of pet hobbies and his pet issues in relation to the environment. He was very interventionist politically many times. And, similarly, this kind of move to create some warm spaces for poor people in his residences, I think there's a danger in it backfiring, because, if I was one of those poor people who was going into a grand palace to keep warm, you might, begs the question, well, if you can do this, why not sort of let me have one of the candlesticks to pawn to pay my energy bill? There's a kind of a sort of very kind of old-fashioned, elitist kind of tinge to all of this, which is that the deserving poor who you'll kind of give out a few coppers to at Christmas. There's an element of that to this. And I think probably the more interesting and bigger question is, why is it that we live in a society in which the king has to allow a few people to come in and warm their feet by the fire, in 2023? Why is that something that's happening?
The sad thing is, of course, he's slightly damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, right? Because if he did nothing about this at all, then people would say, why are you not getting involved? The fact he is, of course, could have a slight backlash, maybe you're saying. Sue, I was just going to say, I know, obviously, a monarchist. Do you think that is right, though? Do you think maybe this could backfire in any way? Or do you think it will be seen by most people as this is just a really nice thing to do?
I think it'll be seen as a really nice thing. That's a load of typical left-winger, that is, who hates the monarchy. At the end of the day...
You got me.
He's thinking of other people. Nobody mentioned the poor people coming and warming their feet by the fire. Nobody says anything about the councils allowing people to go into their properties to keep warm, especially the old, because in addition to them keeping warm, they actually get socialised. They get people socially talking to them for a change. So it's not just keeping warm, it's giving them sort of company as well in this weather. You don't know what it's like to be lonely unless you're being lonely yourself.
Okay.
You hope that having company is very important, as well as keeping warm.
I can totally understand that, and obviously very emotional for you, Sue. The thing is, you were talking, Ella, about how the Queen really kept out of some of these big affairs. I suppose the reality is Charles is living in a completely different era than his mother did. So when she became Queen, which was very young, no one knew what she really thought about because there was not rolling news, there wasn't 24-hour news. The press left them alone or would only talk to them when they were allowed to speak to her. So we never really knew what she thought about any of these issues. Of course, Charles has had, 70 years to let us know what he thinks. A lot of it's on video. A lot of it has been well documented. And of course, even if he doesn't say anything now, and he hasn't said anything so far, clearly since he's been king, all of that is still there to be talked about, and everyone knows what his views are.
Yeah, well, the important thing is that the reason why the late Queen was so studiously by the rule book in terms of not ever giving anything away in terms of her political views or her biases or her preferences or anything like that, is because the whole reason in which the monarchy works is that it's meant to be, if you look at the kind of the sort of philosophy behind it, it's that it's meant to be this thing that's above the rest of us. It's the sublime. It's something that we can only look up and admire. And in the 21st century now, in 2023, that kind of adoration for a family who are in that position just by dint of their birth, I think is warrants some questions. And just to reply to Sue, I absolutely think that there is a very important issue with people being kept company, and loneliness is a terrible scourge at the moment, particularly for older people. But the thing about councils is we vote councils in, and they then provide services. We don't get to vote King Charles in or out, and that's why I think that there's a problem there, let's put it that way.
Ella, we'll leave this one there. Sue, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for being on the show tonight. Much appreciated. Thank you for your contribution. Now, West Midlands Police have lauded a rehabilitation scheme which they say has saved local businesses £800,000. So I'll be asking my next guest, should we be punishing criminals or rehabilitating them? Right, this and much more still to come. Stay where you are. We are back in a jiffy.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back then to the People's Hour with me, Neil Fox. Now, West Midlands Police have lauded a scheme of rehabilitating offenders who suffer from addiction, which they say has saved local retailers about £800,000 from reductions in shoplifting. Now, the region's Police and Crime Commissioner, Simon Foster, has said locking up those who shoplift to fund their addictions rarely solves the underlying causes of crime. So with this apparent success story, we're asking, should we be punishing criminals or rehabilitating them? So let's go to another good friend of the show for his take on this. It's Andrew in Dudley. Hello there, Andrew. Nice to have you on tonight. What do you think then? Seems like a good idea.
Hi, Neil. Yeah, well, I think there's an argument for both, to be quite honest with you, for punishment and for rehabilitation. But I think, as the West Midlands Police have proved in this area, the rehabilitation is definitely working. It's a very good scheme. Its cost is very minor compared to keeping prisoners in jail. If you send a prisoner to jail who's got a drug addiction, what usually happens is that there's a drug culture in the prison and there's no form of rehabilitation there, if you allow an expert to rehabilitate an offender, then you've got more of a chance to change that person's lifestyle and it will stop them shoplifting. So I think this is the main cause of this problem. It's 70% of people who shoplift basically are Class A user, Class A drug users. So it's really a case of being able to reduce the amount of shoplifting, saving retailers in this area £800,000. It's a lot of money, Neil.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I guess to start with, the law obviously has to make sure that if a criminal, well, we need to, I suppose, protect society, right, to make sure that people are safe. So if they're a dangerous criminal, we obviously need to get them off the streets to make sure that people's safety is safeguarded. But with people like this, clearly there needs to potentially be another way. And it's really interesting seeing there is another scheme now. Ella, let me just bring you in on this one as well. I mean, yeah, what do you think? We've got to obviously punish criminals, but we also want to try and make sure they don't do it again. Does this sound like a good scheme to you?
Yeah, but the important thing about rehabilitation is that, you know, what it means is, for me anyway, is trying to get somebody interested in being a good citizen, being part of society again. And lots of people, particularly those with drug addiction, have completely fallen out of society. They're on the fringes. They're not interested in protecting their own life. They're certainly not interested in being good to other people. They're completely isolated. And so in the process of rehabilitation, what you're doing is trying to get people to understand that they're part of a community and that, you know, and get them excited about that. I work with a charity called Debating Matters, which is a debating competition, and they have a project called Debating Matters Beyond Bars, where they go into prisons and get prisoners basically debating about the kind of issues we're talking about tonight, you know, political issues, thinking about the world and getting to know the fact and getting comfortable with the fact that there is a world of opportunity out there. I think there's, you know, while you're it's absolutely right to say you do have to take a hard line and say, you know, that shoplifting or you know that, any kind of criminal activity is wrong and there has to be a kind of comeuppance for that. But I think also it's true to say that we lock people up these days for all kinds of, you know, there is a lot of stuff that's illegal that shouldn't be illegal. I'm not necessarily talking about shoplifting. I'm talking about things like, crackdowns on free speech. Actually, we could have a whole other debate about crackdowns on drug use. I think we're too keen to lock people up and throw away the key. We've actually lost faith in the process of rehabilitation. So this scheme sounds very interesting.
Let's bring Andrew back in here from Dudley. Obviously, this has happened in your neck of the woods, Andrew, and in a way it must bring potentially a little bit of comfort as a sort of a law-abiding citizen that actually schemes are out there to try and help these people. They've obviously got problems and they need some help, and as we found out, locking them up doesn't do any good. Would you be up for funding more of these schemes, maybe more public money going into funding these schemes to try and help yours and other areas become safer?
Yes, I think the scheme should be rolled out nationally. The cost of rolling it out, I think, is something like £100,000, which is a relatively small amount of money to actually bring in the benefits of a scheme like this. I live quite near to a retail park, and my wife was in retail for a long time, and she used to tell me some quite horror stories about shoplifters who used to go into the shop. They were really down and out and very difficult people to try and control. And the people who worked in the shops were quite apprehensive about going anywhere near them. You know, sort of the security people were getting involved to try and take care of the situation. But you know, it is a good scheme. It ought to be rolled out. And you would see the benefits of it as time evolves.
Yeah, I guess it always comes down to, you know, should the law be punishing people who do wrong, or should they be making sure they don't do it again? I guess maybe there's a bit of both, and it always depends on the crime, of course. Would you be up for a much more open society, really rehabilitating, I'm completely messing up here, but rehabilitating more criminals in this way for other kind of crimes as well?
Yes, it depends on the level of crime. Obviously, as Emma has just said, I think that with very serious crimes, they have to go into prison and serve their time. But for other crimes, it's a case of taking the initiative and basically following a scheme like this, which is going to try and rehabilitate people who are doing minor offences.
All right. Well, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. I apologise for not even being able to speak English earlier, but I think we've managed to get my mouth and brain sorted out now. But thank you very much indeed for being on. A brilliant People's Hour. Really enjoyed that. Thanks to everyone who took part this evening. Thank you very much indeed to Norma in the Canary Islands, Amanda in East Sussex, Zachary in Leicester, Sue in Cheshire, and of course, just then, Andrew in Dudley. Thank you all. Thank you very much indeed, Ella Whelan as well, for being our guest in the studio tonight. Much appreciated getting your take on things. Coming up, in my big opinion, to strike or not to strike? That's the question. I'll be giving my view on the public sector walkouts. That's from 9 o'clock. In the big question, following the decision by Welsh Rugby to ban Tom Jones's Delilah, I'll be asking whether music should be censored. Plus, we'll have tomorrow morning's Sunday papers from 10:20 right through until 11 o'clock. Thank you. Right, get the kettle on. We will see you in 3 minutes.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go. But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight with me, Neil Fox, in my big opinion. To strike or not to strike? That is the question. I'll be giving my view on the public sector walkouts. In the big question, following the decision by Welsh Rugby to ban Tom Jones's Delilah, I'll be asking whether music should be censored. And in the news agenda with my panel, should over 50s be incentivised to return to work? Have we fallen out of love with film? And are you prepared to eat bugs for your breakfast? I'll see you after the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The United States has shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon that's been flying across its airspace this week. The balloon was shot down by US fighter jets off the south coast of Carolina after it had flown over sensitive sites. Earlier in the day, 3 airports were closed and airspace restricted in the southeast of the country after President Joe Biden vowed to take care of it.
On Wednesday, when I was briefed on the balloon, I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was when we got over water outside within the 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it, and we'll have more to report on this a little later.
Officers investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley are appealing for a key witness who they believe was in the area that morning. The witness is a woman wearing a yellow coat seen on CCTV pushing a pram in the area where the dog walker disappeared. The 45-year-old mother of 2 was last seen in Lancashire last Friday. Nicola's family have questioned the police theory that she fell into the river while walking her dog. Her friend Heather says it's taking a heavy toll.
As a friend of Nikki, I am struggling to see how we can take a theory as a conclusion. Nikki, we need evidence to know where Nikki is, and as far as I'm aware, they have not found any evidence. Saw Paul and Nick's parents and sister last night. They're heartbroken. They are living a living hell. And on top of that, they have all the speculation that comes out to deal with. It's too much. It's not fair.
A number of houses have been evacuated in the Derbyshire town of Belper after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosives offences. Officers were called to a property in Acorn Drive yesterday evening. A search uncovered a number of suspicious items. A 100-metre cordon is in place. Nearby roads have been closed as bomb disposal experts assess the property. Police say they don't know how long the closures will be in place for. The bodies of 2 British aid workers who died during a humanitarian evacuation have been returned to Ukrainian authorities. The families of Chris Parry and Andrew Bagshaw say the pair were attempting to rescue an elderly woman from the eastern town of Solidar in early January. The bodies were returned as part of a prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine involving nearly 200 people. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now, it's back to Neil Fox.
On Mark Dolan tonight with me, Neil Fox. In my big opinion, to strike or not to strike, that is the question. I'll be giving my view on the public sector walkouts, that shortly. In the big question, following the decision by Welsh Rugby to ban Tom Jones's Delilah, I'll be asking whether music should be censored. We'll also have the papers at the earlier time of 10:20, right through until 11. Now, later this hour, we'll be going stateside to catch up with the Queen of US Royal Showbiz and political reporter Kinsey Schofield, as another apparent mistruth has been revealed from Prince Harry's book, Spare. And in the news agenda, should over 50s be incentivised to return to work? Have we fallen out of love with film? And are you prepared to eat bugs for your breakfast? Well, reacting to these stories and many more are my brilliant panel tonight of top political and social commentator Lizzie Zita, Fred Fairbrass, one half of Right Said Fred, and the other half of the iconic pop duo is brother Richard Fairbrass. We can promise a lively 2 hours here on GB News. I want you to get involved, please, throughout the show. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk. Big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. So let's start with this one. To strike or not to strike, that is the question. I remember the last winter of discontent very well. I was 17 years old. Now, just for the record, I Googled this today. History refers to that winter of discontent as, and I quote, the period between November 78 and February 79 in the United Kingdom, characterised by widespread strikes by private and later public sector trade unions, demanding pay rises greater than the limits Prime Minister James Callaghan and his Labour Party government had been imposing against TUC opposition to control inflation. Some of these industrial disputes caused great public inconvenience, exacerbated by the coldest winter in 16 years, in which severe storms isolated many remote areas of the country. Blimey, that sounds a little bit familiar, right? We'll roll on 44 years to today, and it's a similarly sad state of affairs, except this time, let's just add in 10 years of austerity measures brought in following the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, plus the vote to leave the European Union and the years of toxic Brexit negotiations that followed. Oh, then there's the COVID pandemic, lockdown, including a furlough scheme where we were paid to stay at home and not go to work. Then there was the open checkbook to buy PPE and find a miracle vaccine, and then roll it out to the entire nation, followed by another global slowdown, plus the war in Ukraine and a new energy and cost of living crisis. And the instability of a Conservative Party in apparent meltdown, giving us 4 Chancellors of the Exchequer in just 1 year and 3 Prime Ministers, including Liz Truss's hugely damaging 44 days in office. Well, the stage has been set for one almighty showdown. It feels like a giant volcano that has been building up pressure for a decade, which has finally started to erupt. And here we are, train drivers, tube drivers, civil servants, firefighters, and then even teachers, nurses, junior doctors, all striking over pay and conditions. Now, they are good, decent, hard-working people. And let's be honest, although these strikes are hugely disruptive to so many people in this country, I'm sure most of us can understand why they are unhappy. With inflation raging at 10%, everyone's pay is worth less and less in real terms. And in so many of these striking sectors, pay rises, if any, over the last decade have not kept up with inflation, and so people are generally worse off. Now, it should be said that there are many people, millions of course, around the UK who have also been feeling the pinch for a very long time, but they can't strike or won't strike. So, what can be done? However much we may try to understand the situation, should the government, or any government for that matter, allow strike action where the knock-on effect for so many of us prevents us from getting to work or going about our daily lives, in the case of train drivers or tube drivers, for instance, or worse still, potentially put lives at risk in the case of nurses and doctors? Should such strikes actually be banned? Now, I'm sure a lot of us have had that thought at some point. I can bet most of the parents walking around my local park on Wednesday when they should have been at work and their kids should have been at school were thinking just that. But could it actually happen? And should that ever really become law? Could it actually ever work? If it was to happen, of course, measures would clearly need to be put in place to ensure that all parties sat down regularly and created a sensible, honest, ongoing dialogue so that things never came to some crazy head that made people strike. But then I'm thinking, shouldn't that be happening anyway, all the time? Do you, like me, wonder just how we got to this position? There is, of course, some political game playing going on here. This government looks pretty weak right now, and Rishi Sunak is being tested. What kind of leader is he? Can he take on the might of the unions in 2023? Can he find a solution to what seems like an ever-growing situation? Time will tell. Money is tight. The economy is being squeezed badly. A week is a long time in politics, but I fear this is going to be a very long month. So what on earth do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I would like to know. GBviews at gbnews.co.uk. I'll get your emails after the break. Now, reacting to my big opinion monologue tonight are a brilliant panel. Iconic pop duo Right Said Fred. Both Fred and Richard Fairbrass are here live in the studio tonight. And we've also got top political and social commentator Lizzie Zita. Good evening, lady and gentlemen.
Hi.
Firstly, the Freds, how weird to see you in this kind of situation, but lovely to have you on our sofa.
Thank you.
Of course, let me ask you first. So Richard, we've talked pop and trivia so much in the past. Here is a very serious situation we find ourselves in this country. What do you think? Should strikes ever be banned? And could it ever happen?
Strikes should never be banned. If they were, it would never happen because it would create too much discord, I think, in society generally. But also, I think the wrong people are on strike. I have a feeling that everybody at home would think the House of Commons and the House of Lords should go on strike. And I think the country will run a lot better if they were on strike. We don't really need them. I think that this is a stupid game. We have a Prime Minister who's up to his nipples in corruption. And allegedly. And I think that if I was a working man, as opposed to a musician, I would be thinking, well, hold on a second. If these people are claiming all sorts of nonsense on expenses, they've got all sorts of contracts going out on PPE, they're creaming the system as much as they can. When Andrew Bridgen stands up and actually says something sensible, nobody wants to listen. So I'd be thinking, hold on a second, why should I not say what I think? Why should I not go on strike? So I think the wrong people are striking, basically. Yeah.
Fred, what do you think?
I agree with Richard. I don't think strikes should ever be banned. I think people should have the right to strike if they want to, or if they feel it's appropriate. I think it's a bit of a trickle-down theory. I think what's coming out of House of Commons for a long time now has been a sense that people have been lied to, they've been poorly represented, there's a massive disconnect. So I think people are looking at politicians, they're looking at the wealth of some of the politicians, they're looking at the money going to Ukraine, they look at suddenly how much, remember during austerity, suddenly we had 4 billion for what was the Irish party called? The Democratic... DUP. DUP. Suddenly, yes, thank you.
Back in the day.
Yeah, during austerity, there was suddenly 4 billion for DUP, and we were told that money doesn't grow on trees, but it apparently does. It does for Rishi Sunak and Nadeem Zawawi, who suddenly found he hadn't paid his tax. Ooh!
What a surprise!
I think it's the mindset. It's that trickle-down mindset. People sick to death of seeing other people benefiting from other people's misfortune.
Absolutely.
So, Lizzie, we've got this awful situation. A lot of people out on strike. And actually, I'm sure a lot of people, their money is not worth what it was, as for most of us, as it certainly was a year, 2 years, 5 years ago. But what can be done? Because money doesn't grow on trees, although actually, Fred, I have to say, during the pandemic, it did seem to grow on trees. It was this bottomless pit. And I can imagine some people thinking, well, if you could just create a load of money then, maybe you could find some for us now because we need it. What do you think, Lizzie?
Listen, I think both sides need to really sort this out. It's going on for too long. It's hurting too many people. I agree that people always should be able to strike. It's a basic freedom. I would never disagree with that. But on the other hand, the public sector is costing £233 billion a year. So if we add that, another 10%, which is inflation, or 19%, which is what the nurses want, we will have to carry that forward, not just this year, but into the future. Now, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we need to find una via di mezzo, as we say, a middle road. Both parties need to sit down. They need to discuss it. One of the biggest unions said 7%, the rail union. I think that's pretty fair. Why can't we give them 7%? I think that, you know, and I think the nurses in particular really should have a good pay rise. At least 10% to be in line with inflation. People are really suffering.
They are.
People are really suffering. And I think that they need to sit down and they need to sort this out quickly. If they cannot sort this out quickly, there needs to be some kind of skeleton system put into place so the whole country doesn't grind to a halt. Because we're in a really big hole. We need everybody out there. We need people working.
I mean, you said you hope both parties sit down. I mean, there's this. If this was what I call normal business, people would be sitting down and having meetings about this, ongoing meetings, to make sure you never get to this crisis point. And I'm kind of hoping that there have been meetings going on for years, that people have a constant dialogue. If they don't, they damn well should do, because we need to stop these things building up to a head that's about to explode. And that's exactly what we feel, because it almost feels like there are so many people now asking for money. How on earth can you literally pay them all? Because the amount it'll cost the nation is unbelievable.
But you're not going to be able to pay them all, but there needs to be some level of compromise that is reached for the services that are so vital. We're talking about the nurses, the tube workers, the railway people. Come on, guys, get on with it. We need the country moving. We need everybody out of their pyjamas and into work.
Can I just ask a question?
Richard.
One question I've got is, everything that Lizzie says, for example, I agree with, but it's based upon the assumption that people want an agreement. And I'm not convinced that's true.
I mean,
I don't think the government wanted an agreement.
Right.
Particularly the government. I don't know whether this is true. Maybe, Lizzie, you can help me on this. But I heard that the losses incurred by the rail companies are being covered officially by the government.
Yes, they are.
Right.
It's absolutely true. There are voices saying that actually there are certain members of the extreme right wing of the Conservative Party who want the NHS to fail because they want privatisation to start to be rolled in. So therefore,
to be a minority view, though, doesn't it? Because I think, as we've discussed quite a lot, there seems to be some cross-party agreement now that actually the NHS really needs some help. So hopefully the fringe will keep out of it. For the moment, though, right?
But,
Lizzie,
it has to be said that
we'll
Boris
come back
Johnson.
To this, but for the moment, we're going to move on. Coming up in the news agenda, if I may, with my panel, should over 50s be incentivised to return to work? Have we fallen out of love with film? Are you prepared to eat bugs for breakfast? We'll have Sunday morning's papers at the earlier time this evening of 10:20. But next in the big question, should music be censored? Right, get the kettle on. I think it's going to be a good night. We'll see you in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Neil Fox. Some of your emails. Thank you very much indeed for getting in contact. Hello, Alan. Thank you. I'm an ex-prisoner back 30 years ago when I was in prison. I believe it eventually helped me to have a better life by guidance. But there's never enough opportunities for everyone. It's maybe 20% of prisoners that get to go on painting and decorating courses, but they need more trades available to learn. Prison's not easy. You don't have control of your freedom, which is expected, but it's a sentence in itself for most people. I've not been in prison for over 20 years, so with the right help, more people can change their ways. David says, as a teacher for 35 years, yes, teachers deserve pay rises. Throughout my years of being a teacher, I did get some pay rises. I took pride, though, in educating people. Scarlett said, I listened to you on the radio for so many years in jail. Hello, Scarlett. Catriona, I left the UK to work as a teacher abroad. I've recently returned to the UK to teach, and my salary is the same as what it was 13 years ago. I'm against striking, but I can see why so many people are. Most people I know are struggling to make ends meet. Dave says, how can this be when the oil companies are making obscene and growing profits? Are we motorists being shafted? If so, why? Right, keep them coming in. We love to hear your views. GB Views at gbnews.uk. OK, it's time for this. Yep, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Well, tonight, after Tom Jones's 1960s hit song Delilah was banned by the Welsh Rugby Union, they banned it because they thought it had problematic lyrics about a jealous man stabbing his unfaithful lover. Now, despite the WRU banning the song, it didn't stop Welsh supporters today at the opening of the Six Nations defiantly singing the song, of course, in the stadium. So we're asking, should music be censored? Well, joining me now to discuss this is award-winning producer and songwriter Trey Lowe and singer-songwriter Chip Kendall. Trey and Chip, welcome along. Trey, let's start with you. Is there ever a time when music should be censored?
Never. Simple as that for me. I would say never. And I think it's been tried in the past, isn't it, when they brought the stickers out onto the albums back in the day because of rock music, etc. And it doesn't actually achieve the desired results. I would say never. I think there is perfectly, well-working legislation in place, incitement to hatred or obscenity laws, etc., that would govern music. I think music is creative and creativity should always flourish. As simple as that for me.
OK. Chip, same thoughts? Do you agree? Hey.
Yeah, I think censorship of music and banning music and things like that, I think it probably comes up because music at its core is very powerful. It invokes emotions. And when people get emotional and riled up about things, they can develop very strong opinions on those things. But I, for one, am thankful that music isn't banned or isn't censored. I read the Bible. I think if some people had their way, the Song of Solomon would be banned from the Bible, or some of the Psalms for that matter. But I'm thankful that they've actually stood the test of time. And I'm not saying that Tom Jones is as good as the writer King David, but I'm just saying that music in itself, I can see why people try to ban it. I tell you what, this is my best thought on this is what Mother Teresa said. She said, it's better to light a candle than to curse the dark. And I think that's a really good approach. But let's just write some better songs.
OK. I mean, it's interesting. Look, music's often been challenging, whether it's been covering challenging issues, wanting change in society, anti-war, whatever it may be. But then there's also been obscene songs. I mean, like, having worked on the radio for many, many years, an awful lot of songs we've had to edit just so they were, they could be broadcast. But that's not banning them. I mean, it does seem to be sometimes counterintuitive that the moment authorities ban anything, everyone wants to know what it's banned for. I mean, look at Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood as a great example. And every kid wants to know and they go out and buy it. So it seems to defeat the object. It goes to number one. Again, what happens? They ban Delilah and every fan who might not have sung it before, they're outside the stadium today singing the song. I mean, will it ever work? And I suppose, should there be any censorship in art at all, I suppose, is the bigger question. Or do we have to just understand that art is there and it just has to be enjoyed for what it is and let people make their own decisions? What do you think, Trey?
I think you're right. I think art is creative, isn't it? And I always say to everyone that creativity is there to flow through you. We almost, as creative people, don't even know what the source of it is. It's there to flow through you. And I think it's just valid for that sake alone. It's one of the highest expressions a human can ever have is be creative. Why would you want to actually censor that? Especially when there are laws in place that protect. And if any of this art and music contributes to any of these laws, then obviously, rightly so, it's going to come down on like a ton of bricks. But it's like, Nas once said, for instance, hip hop is the CNN for black people, for instance. At what point can you censor that? Imagine they did what they did with Delilah, just to hip hop as a genre. You'd have a whole genre gone. And where do you draw the line? I mean, some of the best music happened during the whole Vietnam War, didn't it? Some people are anti-war. Would you ban that? It then becomes a government agenda. And then we're going down a dangerous line of what the government or the powers that be think is okay and what's not okay. At that point, do we want to live in a society like that where everything's gone through this filter? Who's in charge of that? I think it sets a very dangerous precedent. Not only that, I didn't even know necessarily the lyrics to Delilah because it's such a fun, wholesome song. So now what they've done is shone a light now on the lyrics. And I read it, I thought, wow, I didn't even realize it was about a jilted lover thinking I'm going to get my revenge. I mean, imagine. So what you do by trying to censor it is you end up shining a light on the very thing that you don't want people to think about. Can you imagine? It's counterproductive as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree with you because, the number of times I've played that on the radio and sung along to it, and I kind of go, oh, is it about Jill? I just sing Delilah. We just sing along, my, Delilah, without really knowing what it is. I actually did go online. Right, the lyrics are, she stood there laughing. I felt the knife in my hand and she laughed no more. Right, so those are the lyrics. Now, look, I didn't even know that, but I do now, and I guess it has shined a light on it. It's very true. And I'm guessing that, Chip, you are a Christian music artist and what have you, so I'm sure there are some songs you don't like listening to. There are some that you find they're offensive, whether it be some hardcore hip-hop or grime or whatever it may be. But I'm sure as an artist, you don't want it banned. It's just you make a choice to listen to it or not, right?
100%. I agree with what Trey said, and I think context is everything. I don't know if either of you guys are dads, but when it comes to your kids discovering certain films or certain songs, you do start to have a moment where you're like, hang on a second, I don't know if you're ready for this yet. And I think that there is something to be said for being good role models and making sure our creativity is at the top of its game. I really don't like it when a lot of these pop artists, they try to kind of push the envelope a little bit and they try to, how nasty can I get? Well, that isn't the point. I don't think the point is to see how nasty you can get. It's how creative you can be in communicating your message. And I think every songwriter would agree with that.
I mean, there's a slight danger, is there? Our world has become, and I hate to use that word woke, but everyone knows what it means, that people are now looking at certain songs and maybe finding offence where no offence was ever meant in them, you know, I always kind of think, when I look at the Rolling Stones and Brown Sugar, that was never meant to be in any way a racist song, but of course that's banned. So many other songs get banned now because they're not deemed OK in our modern world. And again, I can understand some broadcasters thinking we have to be careful about certain songs, but you can't actually cancel a song. The song's out there and it's to be... I mean, do you think is there any evidence that any song should ever be banned or looked at? Or do you think, no, everything has to literally live or die by its own content? Trey,
I mean, I would say again, I mean, we have legislation in place.
True.
That would probably cover the most extreme of tracks, right? That's number one. But I think you should always leave people to make informed decisions. For instance, you know, I'm not a dad yet, but when I am a dad, I may not let my kids, for instance, listen to, I don't know, WAP, for instance, from Cardi B, right? Now, that's a personal choice. And I think it should always be in control of the parents to do that or not. But to start banning, it just defeats the purpose. It doesn't achieve the desired result. So why start banning? It just makes things a lot more popular. But not only that, again, like I said, it then strays into the world of it being political. Who's going to be the person that wields the power to ban music, and under what basis? I mean, we've heard recently, I know it might have been a bit of a parody, but they were talking about banning Aretha song, Natural Woman, right? Because in today's way, and I don't like to use the word woke, but some people that might be seen as a bit offensive, Natural Woman. And we don't know whether it's a parody, you know, apparently it's from some Scandinavian organization, whatever. But you then have this slippery slope of everything's going to offend someone at some point, and whole genres will end up getting banned. I mean, I grew up in the days of UK garage, that's what I'm known for, and legislation came out that started to affect the livelihoods of people. You know, talking about if you're going to be playing R&B or certain music or hip-hop, then the whole place gets shut down. So you're now going to start affecting people often from working class backgrounds and stop them from earning a living. Why not just leave the decision in the hands of the listener? You know, if we find it offensive, we will. And, you know, like my fellow commentator just said, I think a lot of people now are making music for shock value. So it's not as good as it was. So people naturally start making a decision thinking, people are making music for shock value. We're not really bothered about some of the violent misogynistic lyrics. Let's find something we like. So now you're seeing things like Afrobeat, for instance, starting to take center stage. Because the lyrics are very wholesome. It's about love, the kind of stuff that Motown would have done back in the days. And the hip hop and all the other stuff that's a lot more violent, misogynistic, etc. People just stop listening to it. So
well, like so many things, and I saw Chip there putting his hands up, like most things, of course, it's only the tiny minority of things that get the news attention. The vast majority, great music, great songs.
Music at its best, music at its best should bring people together. Right? You know, do you remember that song? It's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money. We just want to make the world dance. You know, let's get back to why music is really given to us as a gift from God anyway, to bring people together, not separate.
Yeah. OK. Well, thank you, Chip. Really appreciate you being here tonight. Trey, thank you very much indeed. What's the website you just wanted to say hello to?
So was that me, Neil?
Yeah, sorry. Well, there was a platform we wanted to mention.
Oh, yeah. So another thing which actually links is a platform that I've created called More Than Men. And that's about really supporting men and the challenges that men go through. And I think we see that now in this so-called woke culture. I think some of it seems to go down on a kind of masculinity. I mean, it's no surprise that song was penned by a man, isn't it? So I think it's about finding a way for men to express themselves in a way that's not toxic, but that's more grounded, that's mindful of people, but it allows men to really celebrate who they are. So it's a platform called More Than Men that we're creating to celebrate men. So thanks for allowing me to plug that, Neil.
Thank you very much. Very nice to have you on. Thanks for your thoughts, by the way, Trey. Thank you, Chip. And by the way, on a Twitter poll, a massive 95.6% of you said no to any form of censorship, while only 4.4% of you said yes. Well, coming up, we've got tomorrow morning's Sunday papers at the earlier time of 10:20, right through until 11 o'clock. Later this hour, we'll be going stateside to catch up with the Queen of US Royal, political and showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield. But next, should over 50s be incentivised to return to work? We'll see you in 3.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Right, back with me now and joining me throughout the show, my all-star panel tonight, iconic pop duo, I'm Too Sexy. Right said Fred. Both Fred and Richard are here live in the studio. Also top political and social commentator Lizzie Zita. Before we start, obviously, Richard and Fred, censorship in music. I mean,
no, I don't think you should censor any art at all. No, ever. I think it's down. It stands or falls on its content.
Yeah.
People don't like it, they can turn it off, walk away.
Exactly.
Not turn up.
Also,
not buy tickets.
Very
whatever.
often, I actually agree with Chip about music in terms of it's powerful, and that's why politicians hate it. I always think politicians are like bouncers. They like things to be nice and quiet. They don't want any trouble, you know.
Sit down.
Sit down, behave yourself, don't smoke, don't you know. Yeah. And the reason London is such a sad ghost of what it was is because we've allowed the anti-smoking thing and the anti-car thing to take control. And if you want art to really blossom, you have to take your foot off the pedal. You've got to let people do what they want to do.
I mean, if you went down the road...
Are you listening, Sadiq Khan?
He doesn't want art. He doesn't want London to be vibrant. He wants it to be controlled.
If you went down the road and say, yes, we do want it banned, well, who's going to... Let's just say we did.
Yeah.
Who's the judge?
Yeah, well, exactly. And there lies the danger.
Yeah,
and you just realise, as soon as you start thinking about it, you just can't ban it.
Well, back in the day, didn't we have to ask the Postmaster General? Do you remember this? I think we had to ask the Postmaster General, and in the West End you had to submit every script, I think, to be read, and I think at the Windmill Theatre, where all the girls were topless, initially the deal was we can do that, but they're not allowed to move. Really?
Do you know,
What were you doing hanging out the window?
Exactly, yeah.
There was something that I found deeply shocking and offensive, and it was a piece of artwork. It
What's
was
that?
in the Tate, and it was of Myra Hindley.
Oh.
And it was done with children's hands.
Oh my gosh.
All with children. And as a mum, I was just
But
like...
you can't stop them from doing it, can't you?
repulsed by that. I didn't
That's the
like it
problem.
at all.
You can't stop them doing it, but maybe not put it in the.
Yeah, I mean,
you knew, I guess they knew it would cause controversy,
Yes,
which meant
of
publicity.
course.
And that, to me, isn't art. If you're trying to,
That's a different conversation.
That's a very different. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a difficult conversation.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Life doesn't just have to be about the golf course. Crikey, we've gone from chalk to cheese. Said Chancellor Jeremy Hunt last week as part of a drive to plug Britain's labour shortage with the over 50s, a fair amount of whom have not returned to work after the pandemic. Tax breaks for oldies were reportedly being considered a few months back. The latest idea on the cards appears to be to station job coaches at GP surgeries, catching those work-shy middle-aged while they're popping out for their checkups. You almost couldn't make it up, right? So please, what do you think? Why are so many of Britain's relatively senior citizens out of the workforce? Some say this is down to increased care commitments. Others say ageism in the workplace is to blame, while the likes of Mr. Hunt see early retirement as the scourge. What should be done? Should the government even be interfering in the choices of its citizens like this? Right, look, we know there's a shortage in the job market.
Yes.
They need people, right?
Yes.
50, look.
Hotels are full of them.
Well, I was going to say, look, we're all of a certain age, right? So, look, and we're all still working nice and hard and loving every second of it.
Yeah.
The pandemic was an interesting time, he says, close inverted commas.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't go back to work after it. Should they be made to go?
No, absolutely no. They can't. You cannot make people go back to work.
Like slaves, you mean?
No, yeah,
Exactly.
And you will go back to work.
You will go back to work.
Yeah.
Fine. Can I just say something? Can I just say something? Jeremy Hunt, to give you an indication of how out of touch they are, he thinks they're all on the golf course.
But I just think I looked at the figures, and basically, people who are 60 to 65, 66% of them have paid off their mortgages.
Right.
61% of them believe that they have enough money to last them. They're confident in their pensions and in their investments that why would they go back to work?
Yeah.
Why do they need to go to? It's that high. It's the figures that I looked up from the government.
You're a bit of a
censorship.
colour club, aren't you?
Well, no, not really. I just tried to do my research, darling. It's because I'm so stupid. I have to read it before I come on.
That's interesting.
So I just think why, and it's also because of the disaster of Brexit.
Oh, we can talk about
So many people left the country. So many young people left the country, and the government is like, God, we need to get the tax in. I know. Let's get back all the 50s to 65-year-olds to work. I don't think it's going to happen.
Is that
I really
for tax
don't think
reasons
it's gonna
or because there is this massive hole in the labour force?
well,
They need more people to work?
both. There, it's also going to lead to higher inflation if they're not in work. It's not a good situation, and I don't think it's because there is a certain percentage of them that are sick, but more so than that, probably during the pandemic, they thought, well, do you know what, this isn't too bad. I'm at home, etc., etc.
Have they identified where the jobs are? For example, if you're 50, I know you're talking about the GP
I looked
thing.
at this as well.
But
yes.
I thought you might.
I did. I looked at this as well.
I'm pleased you're here.
Well, it's as it very often is in this country. There are two versions.
Right.
We all know that the pubs, the hospitality, they all need jobs, but that's kind of the jobs for younger people, I think, and
Yes,
not
I
being
agree.
ageist, but for younger people, who wants to pull pints when you've done a lifetime's of work? It's for younger people. So a lot of that is missing. Also, if you're a doctor or if you're an engineer or you're in tech, huge amounts of those jobs there. So, but a lot of the people who are not working in those careers have done those jobs.
Right.
So, Jeremy Hunt saying, giving this big call to come back to work, etc., etc. Well, what's the incentive, Jeremy? And to those people that are on the golf course, I would say, don't necessarily go back to work. Start a small business. sell them stuff that they need.
Can I just say
you
one
know?
I was going to say, Richard, briefly on this.
Briefly.
We got a minute.
So, the long list of complete rubbish that you read out, the politicians that are guilty of, from the 70s thing and all the way through, we're blaming the wrong people. I don't understand this. We've got a bunch of people, governments in the House of Parliament and Lords, who have screwed things up continually in this country for the last 30 or 40 years. And now we're talking about the 50-year-olds.
We've got to come back and save them.
I mean, we're blaming the wrong people. It's complete. I don't understand why these people are still in the House of Commons when they can't do the job.
Well, there's the question, right?
Yeah.
How many hours have you got?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
come on, because
Yeah.
I think people will get involved. Well, I think there's lots to talk about tonight, and if you're heated now, you wait until we've got to 11. Coming up in the next hour, my take at 10. Do you trust voice-activated speakers? And should we? But next, we'll go stateside to catch up with the Queen of US Royal, political and showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield, as another apparent mistruth from Prince Harry's book Spare was revealed today. We will see you in 3.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hey, welcome back. Hope you're having a nice Saturday night. A few of your emails now, and thanks very much indeed for taking the trouble to get in contact. Sue, why should the government allow public sector workers to be protected from inflation when the private sector cannot be protected? Just because the employer is the taxpayer, I don't think they should have just what they want. Richard says, don't forget that Liz Truss lost $30 billion. That's enough to pay the nurses, teachers a really decent pay rise. Stephen says, as a professional musician, I'd like to say that music is never censored, only the lyrics. Tanya, says, why is Tom Jones' song to be banned, yet Harry Styles and Stormy can sing F-U blank K Boris? Seriously, I think it's crazy. Right, keep them all coming in. GBviews at gbnews.uk. OK, then, it's time for some American news now with the Queen of US Showbiz, royal and political reporter Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, hello, good evening. How are you this week?
The term over there, but we have a term here called silver fox, and that is exactly what you are. Do you know what it means? It means a handsome man who's gone gray, and I just want to let you know.
Thank you, Kinsey. OK, the check's in the post, all right? Appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I've often sat on the sofa and watched the show, and you know your stuff. So come on, let's get cracking, shall we? Got some great stories to get through. Your favourite, Harry and Meghan, actor Rupert Everett has revealed an apparent mistruth. Another one in Prince Harry's book Spare.
Neil, this is what I've been saying over here in the States. If you make the mistake of mentioning Harry and Meghan in an interview, you know, all hell breaks loose. I have no idea what Rupert was promoting when he did that interview, but I can tell you in great detail that Rupert says that Harry lies about losing his virginity in his book Spare. Now, Rupert says that he knows exactly who Harry lost his virginity to. It did not happen under the circumstances Harry mentions, behind a pub in the countryside. Harry's team bit back and said, well, we're so glad Rupert thinks he knows all of the details about Harry losing his virginity. But this is why I think Meghan wasn't invited to Oprah's birthday party, why you don't see them on a lot of red carpets. They steal the limelight. You've got to be careful. If you want your interview to be about you, don't mention Harry and Meghan. Make it all about your project.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were talking earlier with some of our other guests about, you know, whether King Charles III has got a problem. As monarch, he probably shouldn't allow Harry and Meghan because there'll be too much spotlight on them. And this is actually a state occasion, the coronation. It's not a family occasion at all. But as a dad, you'd probably want your son there, despite what he's been saying. It's interesting what you say about Harry and Meghan and how if you don't want it all to be about them, don't invite them. Jeremy Clarkson faces more backlash to the Meghan Markle comments. His Who Wants a Millionaire Celebrity special has been cancelled because some of the female guests felt unhappy about what he had been saying. What is the feeling in the US actually about Meghan at the moment?
That's right. It seems like these three women kind of piled on and are the reason why Jeremy Clarkson's celebrity special, they say it's pushed back, but, you know, it looks like it's been canceled over these three women that are kind of uniting with each other and pushing back against Jeremy Clarkson over his comments against Meghan Markle. I think that people are tired of the Sussexes. I think that they are oversaturated here in the States. And I don't necessarily think she's got a huge fan club out here. You know, we did see her this week at Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi's renewed vows. That was an event that we saw them at this week with Kris Jenner and Brandi Carlile. And there are actually rumors that Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox were there just to make them uncomfortable because Harry says in his book that he did shrooms with Courtney Cox. And apparently Courtney Cox is not happy about that.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that actually, but also wouldn't you like to have been at some of these meetings? I mean, what on earth would they have talked about? It must have been some really strange... I mean, that young man has lived through some strange stuff. And what I always say, and I find a lot of people I know, our views about Harry are... We felt sorry for him as a young boy growing up and everything he's been through. And then he seemed to turn into this very cool young man. He was almost in danger of becoming almost the coolest royal. And then he went off and did his military service and he did a brilliant job. And actually everything until after the wedding was all going so well. And then it didn't, OK? And then it's now gone so the other way. And, yeah, I think we're a bit burnt out. Should we get off Harry and Meghan? They're getting too much airtime. Let's move on. Come on.
Please,
let's talk
please,
Beyonce.
Absolutely.
Beyonce's fans,
absolutely.
we've heard, have used GoFundMe because it's so expensive, are upcoming for the Renaissance tour. What do you think?
Oh, does this not drive you crazy, Neil? Remember when we wanted concert tickets, how we would walk the dog, we would do extra chores, we would babysit our neighbors' kids. I mean, we would collect cans from the neighborhood and take them in to get pennies on the dollar. I mean, we did all sorts of crazy things so that we could see NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys in concert. But these kids today, they want to see Beyonce's Renaissance tour, so they are setting up GoFundMe accounts in hopes that strangers will pay their way. Now, if I could slap every single one of these people, I probably would. I mean, I got my butt whooped, and I'm a pretty decent human being. I don't feel entitled to have anybody pay for my concert tickets.
Yeah, I mean, the world has gone slightly bloody mad here, let's be honest, hasn't it? But the technology is there, and maybe they just think, well, I'll give it a try. If some nutter's going to give me some money, why not give it a whirl? I mean, it does actually come down to a bigger problem. That how expensive is it now to go and see your favourite stars? I know when Madonna announced her tickets over here, the 600,000 tickets sold out really quick. But the cheapest we found in the UK was £165 to go and see Madonna. That's the cheapest ticket. You know, it's got out of hand. I know that's how the artists make their money. I mean, is there a feeling in America that it's just gone crazy too?
Well, I feel like that's why we were given 2 kidneys. You know, you just put one of those on the internet and you sell a body part. And I think that is really the only option we have. If you want to see Harry Styles up close, then you just have to sell a body part. No, that's definitely the tone. Thankfully, that, you know, even though we're in a recession here, people somehow still find the money to go see Beyonce and Harry Styles in concert.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the artists. I'm sure it'll be absolutely amazing concerts, but by God, it's all getting rather expensive now. Right, let's keep it on the music tip for a minute. An all-time legend, right, Jeff Beck. It was an amazing set of stars turned out for his funeral, which is slightly sad, of course. But when you see some of the superstar mourners, it just shows you the sort of how he was revered.
That's right. It was at St. Mary's. Johnny Depp, who he has been so close to over the last few years, I think was the biggest draw there. Most people were very excited to see him and expected to see him there. Rod Stewart, Tom Jones, who I know you've spoken about recently, Ronnie Wood. And I just think that it goes to show you what a legacy this man led and leaves as one of the greatest guitar players in the entire world. And Johnny Depp was specifically very sad over this death because Jeff and his wife really supported him throughout the chaos of that Amber Heard trial. And it's not over for Johnny Depp. So you wonder who's going to be there to support him in the future, because this was a really close friendship for him.
Kinsey, it's been amazing having you on tonight. Always lovely. I know Mark raves about you, and I can see why. I wish you a lovely night, and thank you for joining us this evening from the old Silver Fox. Goodbye. Thank you. Right, coming up next, thanks for that. My take at 10, do you trust voice-activated speakers? And should we? Plus, we've got tomorrow morning's Sunday papers at the earlier time of 10:20, right through until 11 o'clock. With Richard and Fred and Lizzie too. Right, get the kettle on, or something a little bit stronger if you fancy. I think it could be quite a fun one. Right, we'll see you in 3 minutes after the headlines.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan tonight. I'm Neil Fox in my take at 10 in just a moment. Alexa, should we trust you? In the news agenda, have we fallen out of love with film? And are you prepared to eat bugs for breakfast? Plus tomorrow's papers at the earlier time tonight of 10:20. First up though, the news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Liz Truss has launched her political comeback just 4 months after a rapid exit from Number 10. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, the former Prime Minister says she stands by her low tax policies and she's critical of Rishi Sunak's corporation tax increase. Ms Truss blames her downfall on a powerful left-wing economic establishment and elements of her own Conservative Party, claiming she was not given a realistic chance to enact on her policies. Ms Truss resigned after just 49 days in office following economic turmoil caused by her mini-budget. The US has shot down a Chinese spy balloon that's been flying across its airspace this week. Fighter jets brought the balloon down over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. Now, the US believed it was carrying out surveillance on sensitive military sites across the country. Earlier, 3 airports were closed and airspace restricted in the southeast of the country after President Joe Biden vowed to take care of it.
On Wednesday, when I was briefed on the balloon, I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was when we got over water outside within the 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it. And we'll have more to report on this a little later.
Officers investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley are appealing for a key witness who they believe was in the area that morning. The witness is a woman wearing a yellow coat, seen on CCTV pushing a pram in the area where the dog walker disappeared. The 45-year-old mother of 2 was last seen walking her dog in Lancashire last Friday. Nicola's family, though, have questioned a police theory that she fell into the river, and her friend Heather says it's taking a heavy toll.
As a friend of Nikki, I am struggling to see how we can take a theory as a conclusion. Nikki, we need evidence to know where Nikki is, and as far as I'm aware, they have not found any evidence. Saw Paul and Nick's parents and sister last night. They're heartbroken. They are living a living hell. And on top of that, they have all the speculation that comes out to deal with. It's too much. It's not fair.
A number of houses have been evacuated in the Derbyshire town of Belper after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosives offences. Officers were called to a property in Acorn Drive yesterday evening and a search uncovered a number of suspicious items. A 100-metre cordon's in place Nearby roads have been closed as bomb disposal experts assess the property. Police say they don't know how long the closures will be in place for. That's it for the moment. TV online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News, but now it is back to Neil Fox.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan. Tonight, big stories, big guests, and always some very big opinions. In the news agenda, have we fallen out of love with film? And are you prepared to eat bugs for your breakfast? Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:20 sharp with full panel reaction. Tonight, reacting to the big stories of the day, our top political and social commentator, Lizzie Zeta, Fred Fairbrass, one half of Right Said Fred, and the other half of the iconic pop duo, Richard Fairbrass too. Lots to come this hour, but first, my take at 10. So, do you trust voice-activated speakers? And should we? So 6 years ago, I was working with some good friends. We were turning a fun music game called Beat the Intro into an app. As part of our development, we met some Amazon contacts in Seattle, and they had given us a new device that they were about to launch, and they called it an Alexa speaker. So we brought it home and we set it up, and we were in a meeting one day when, after about 20 minutes, one of us mentioned the word Alexa, and from the other side of the office, this female robotic voice said, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said." Well, we looked at each other and we laughed a little nervously, and then we realised it was on. And then realised that it must have been listening to everything we said in order to react to the name. And I guess that for many people, that's the problem, isn't it? For these devices to work, they need to be on all the time, and then they listen to every word we say, turning our voices into a digital sound wave. They're looking for the right shape of that part of that wave that matches the word Alexa when we say it, or whatever the right word is on your device. I mean, it's genius technology, and it's incredibly clever. And for many people, these devices, Amazon's Alexa, Google's Assistant, and Apple's Siri are the main three, of course, they really have been a life changer. I mean, think of it, for many blind, disabled, and elderly people, just being able to speak to this device, to turn on your radio, to control your lights, your TVs, heating and so on, has made everyday life really a whole lot easier. So many devices can now be controlled by either these voice assistants or apps that a new network's been developed with the nickname the Internet of Things. You may have heard of it. But being linked to these devices means they're linked to us, and they can harvest really valuable data from us about our lives. Do I need my new washing machine to be linked to the internet so I can control it with an app on my way home? Do I need to be able to turn my central heating on or off while I'm on holiday? And do I really need to be able to turn my car's heater on, or even open the garage door and let it drive itself out onto my driveway, all by app? No. But I mean, it's really clever. There are now an estimated 8 billion of these voice-activated devices out in the world. That's roughly one per person, rather scarily. Now, if you are one of the many people who won't have an Alexa or Apple or Google Home speaker in your home because you don't want any Big Brother-style eavesdropping on your conversation, then you need to get rid of your mobile phone too, of course, because that is doing exactly the same thing. In fact, a security expert I was chatting to a couple of years ago, he told me that if you turn your phone off, even if you turn it off, the only way to make sure no one can listen into your conversations is to take the battery out. Otherwise, it's still on, and it's still listening, and it's still sending data about you and your location. I used to think it was such an amazing coincidence when I'd been talking to a friend about something on my phone, and the next time I turned on my computer, oh, what a surprise, an advert for that same thing pops up on my screen. Now, sometimes that can be really useful. Sometimes it kind of freaks me out a bit, to be honest. But I guess it's part of the business model in today's world. Should we just trust it and get on with it? I mean, if we have nothing to hide, who cares, eh? Or should we be sceptical that someone, somewhere, is listening to everything we are saying and maybe could use it against us? I'm increasingly feeling I want one of those T-shirts that says, "Make 1984 fiction again." So what do you think? Do you love them? Have they changed your life? Or do you hate them and are sceptical and scared of them? I don't want them in my house. gbviews@gbnews.uk. I'll get your emails after the break. Now, reacting to my take at 10 are a fabulous panel tonight. Iconic pop duo, The Freds. Right said Fred. That's both Fred and his brother Richard Fairbrass are here live in the studio. And we've also got top political and social commentator Lizzie Zita as well. So, Lizzie, I don't know whether, do you have an Alexa or a Google Home or some form of device in your house, or...
No, I am device-free. I have Siri on my phone, but no, I don't have any of that stuff. And also, if you don't want them to listen, you can switch off, you can mute the microphone. And you need to erase your messages if you're using Alexa. That will give you a level of protection. I don't know how far.
Do you mean text messages or voice?
Voice messages. You need to delete them and mute the... That's what I've been reading anyway, so...
Fred, have you got a device? Have you got some form of voice-activated assistant in your house?
It's me. It's called my wife. It's me. It's my wife. She's voice-activated. No, I don't do that. But I mean, what you said is 100% right. I would never use... I don't like the idea of Siri or Alexa. But then I've got my mobile phone sitting in my apartment, so, I think technology's been brilliant, and I think that particularly from a music industry point of view, it's really it's been a game changer. Some people don't like it, some do, but when you become reliant on this, I think it's when it becomes dangerous, and you open yourself up. If we start to need it so much, it can be taken away from us. Which I think is also...
But it has been, obviously, for some people, you can see how incredible this technology is.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for the disabled, for blind, that makes total sense. I agree with you. It's brilliant.
But there is the big brother element that does freak people out. Richard, what's your thought?
Well, I just think we're sacrificing an awful lot for convenience, generally speaking. And I think the digitisation of everything is incredibly dangerous. And I don't think we quite grasp what we're walking into here. I have never used Siri or any of this other stuff. I think it's really odd. The only time I did it once, I was round at a friend's house and I asked a very vulgar question about Tony Blair. And the
what
voice
was the question?
Yeah,
we want to know. Tell us.
I can't tell you.
Should we leave it? Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave it. But the voice, I do not understand the question. Oh, yes, you do. You do understand the question. You just won't tell me. Yeah. So I think it's I personally don't use it. I think, as you say, for disabled people, blind people, it's very handy. A little bit like the absence of the tapping of the credit card is very useful for the elderly if they can't remember numbers and stuff. But I think we have to be careful what we give up in the name of convenience, that's all.
I think what we've given up more than anything else is privacy. There is no privacy.
No, there's not, no.
With most age groups, except maybe, 80-year-olds plus, there's a massive loss of privacy because they are farming us all the time for data, what we eat, where we go, what we...
Exactly.
There's that, and also, locations and this, that and the other. With young people, there's a whole massive etiquette. Oh, she switched off her locations. That means, I was like, what?
Excuse me.
It's like... So
I
don't know where she is now. Well,
when you're on Snapchat and you want to find out where your kids are, it can be quite useful sometimes.
For that, yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely. I have been that parent. Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier the credit card thing, just the tapping. I mean, look, the lockdown did mean that cash became irrelevant, and an awful lot of places don't take cash anymore. There's no doubt that every time you tap, there's a whole load of data going in, and where you are, who you are, what you're buying,
100%.
how much you're spending, and it is scary.
Which is why people should be encouraged never to shop in places that don't take cash.
In our opinion.
No, not in my opinion. In fact, they should never, ever go to places that don't take cash, because cash gives you anonymity and it gives you complete control over what you do, and it can't be shared with the government. So cash is the only...
But I'm sure that this whole sort of anti-cash thing is because the government want to know how much we're earning, because they want the tax.
Yeah.
It's the reason why they want the 50-year-olds back to work, because they want the tax.
They want the tax. Yeah, they do.
You know,
That's 100%.
Well, I guess it's the whole making tax digital as well, isn't it? If everything you do, spend and has to suddenly go through one of those machines, it's much harder.
Yes.
If you have a load of cash, you can maybe do something with the cash. Of course, if it's just tap, 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 it's there electronically and you can't actually hide it.
But can I say that, you know, the government, the tax office has backed down from this disastrous scheme that they were going to put into place. A lot of my family work in film and television, whereby every 3 months you had to give in a tax return. I mean, it's just a disaster.
Every 3 months?
Every 3 months. They've backed away from it now because they said, we're not ready to do it. But, you know, it's too much control. It's too much, you know... Go and look at sort of, you know, Rishi Sunak's family and other people for the way that they're managing their tax, not the smaller people.
Yeah. I think if they want tax, they should come and get it. Physically. Yeah. Physically, come and get it. It's the same. I get... no, seriously. I get EDF. I get letters from EDF saying, we haven't had your meter reading. No, because I don't work for EDF. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. If you want your meter reading, you come and get it. Yeah. I'm sick
and would you let them in your house?
What?
There's been all this problem with people coming into houses and looking at meters this week.
You mark my words, in 10 years, you'll have to take your own bins out the house and put them in the truck. Yeah, you will, yeah. You will. That's true.
All right, my lovely panel tonight. I think we're going to have a feisty old time looking at the papers, because we've got those coming up at 10:20 sharp with full panel reaction this evening. A couple of other things we're going to be talking about. Have we fallen out of love with film? And are you prepared to eat bugs for breakfast? I've got a funny feeling Richard's probably eaten a lot worse. We will see you in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind, and we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. I'm Neil Fox. Let's look at some of your emails. Thank you, you've been very good tonight. Michaela, thank you for saying nice things. I'm not going to read it out because I might blush. David, good evening, panel and team. Perhaps the underlying reason why so many over 50s have opted out of the workforce is a result of a low-wage economy. Why should they return to work when they were most probably earning more in the 80s and 90s than the present day? How the younger members of the workforce manage these days is beyond me. Meanwhile, the gulf widens. Susan, this is on music being banned. Why should we ban Tom Jones? Hey, what about Bohemian Rhapsody? This is a very good point. Didn't he hold the gun up to his head? He did. Pulled the trigger. Now I'm dead. Yvonne, people should never be stopped from striking for a good reason. But services like nurses, teachers, firefighters, ambulance drivers and trains shouldn't be punishing the rest of us because their pay rises are not as large as they want them to be. There must be a way to sort things out without striking. As for songs, people who are offended by any song shouldn't listen to it. It's their choice. That's so true. Just turn the damn thing off. Bob, Richard Fairbrass is spot on with his observations. I heartily concur. The occupants of the House of Commons have been substandard for 30 years plus. I'm 74, says Bob. I think the observation that Guy Fawkes, the last man to enter Parliament with honourable intentions, is true. Approximately 30 MPs are worth their salt. Crikey, thank you. And Colin, smart speakers are creepy. They are smart listeners, spies in your own home. There we are. Some reaction to some of the things we've been talking about tonight, which has been really good. You can keep it coming in if you want to. It's GB Views at GBNews.uk. Keep it coming in. We'll see if we can squeeze a few of your thoughts and emails before 11 o'clock tonight with my very lively panel. But here's the good news. It is exactly 20 past 10. It's time for the Sunday papers. Tomorrow morning, Sunday papers. But right now, we're going to be looking at just 3 of them, OK? We've got the Sunday Telegraph to start with. Truss, I was brought down by the left-wing economic establishment. Right, I should be joined here. And also, sorry, the Mirror, my hell as Tory MP slave is the front page of that one. Housekeeper at Janogli's home had wages withheld. The 2 women win court battles. Pair given bizarre avocado demands. This sounds like a fascinating story. Right, we should have Paul Connew, the former editor of the Sunday Mirror, on with us to discuss these stories. Paul, I hope you're there, and a very good evening to you.
Good evening. Good evening.
We managed to get your front page on, which is good. So that's what you're leading with tonight. Some different front pages, actually, this evening. So, yes, tell us more about this story that you guys are breaking. Millionaire politician shamed.
Well, that's not one that I'm doing, of course, as a media commentator. The story that's going to really set the tone from the front pages is the Sunday Telegraph, and in which Liz Truss makes her comeback, writing very strongly about why she was right all along, even in her view, it led to that meltdown in the economy. And she's promising to keep pressing for lower taxes in the Commons. And with Boris Johnson also on the manoeuvres, I think the front page of the Sunday Telegraph is going to be the one that Rishi Sunak turns to first tonight, or first thing in the morning, and it's going to dominate the political agenda over the coming days. Certainly tomorrow morning's political TV shows will be focusing very heavily on this one, and it's another sign of the divisions in the Tory party, because there is certainly a lot of backing from the right of the Tory party for Liz Truss's ideas on cutting taxes. Which, of course, is the complete opposite of Rishi Sunak and the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt's position. And Liz Truss basically has a clear go at them in this piece. It's a very long read, and a lot of it is self-serving and excusing and why I was right, even though we made some mistakes and maybe we rushed it out a bit too soon, and maybe I shouldn't have gone to the United Nations General Assembly and I should have stayed, to oversee the mini budget preparation. It's a bit desperate in places, but it certainly is going to set the agenda, and it's certainly going to spook Rishi Sunak, as if he hasn't got enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Things at the moment with Dominic Raab in the balance, and still questions about what he knew and when he knew it about Zahawi.
He's got an awful lot on his plate at the moment, and then, of course, just more strikes, and it's a pretty tough time to be the Prime Minister, Ryan. It has to be said. From your reading of what Liz Truss has said,
but he's signed up for it. But I think what we're seeing at the moment is that Rishi Sunak is fairly weak, and he's trying to preside over a deeply divided party, and when they're languishing over 20 points behind in the polls, it's almost inevitable the factions within the Tory party are going to be fighting each other rather than the Labour Party.
Is this too soon for Liz Truss? Do you think anyone really cares? I know it'll get people talking, but has she got a chance of maybe coming back? Does anyone care? I mean, after the disaster, to be fair, when she was in and what it caused the markets.
I don't think she's deluding herself that she's got any chance of coming back as Prime Minister. Probably much less a chance that Boris Johnson doing it, because there is a serious attempt by some. It's absolute madness in my view, but there is a move to try to get Boris restored and undermine Sunak. And Boris, of course, is very high profile in the last few days, and it's often contradicting Rishi Sunak's position. But Liz Truss and Boris Johnson, I think, maybe they and their backers are working, or will come to work in harness to try to actually turn Rishi Sunak's policies around on several fronts, or or even to oust him.
Do you think
Rishi Sunak is insecure, although it will be absolutely madness for another change of Prime Minister before the general election. I think the public would just find this beyond belief, beyond satire, and totally unacceptable. So I don't think that Keir Starmer will be worrying at all about the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. In fact, he'll probably welcome it because it simply divides the Tory government even more.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, Paul, that the talk of Boris Johnson, Liz Truss here, and what have you, and people trying to restore them? I mean, that's not going to be any good to the country right now. The country's in a real mess, isn't it? I mean, how does a warring, clearly Tory party sort out these problems and, in a way, shut up and just let the Prime Minister get on with it?
Well, I mean, there's the very old adage that voters don't vote for clearly divided parties. And not only that, I think whatever the issues are, the thing that Keir Starmer probably has going for him more than anything else is that another old adage, it's time for a change. After 12 years, the government is looking not just divided, but stale, rather clueless, rather worn out. And I think time is the factor there. But I think a lot of voters are simply going to say it's time for a change. This lot have been around long enough.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why Keir Starmer, I think, is sitting on the fence on strikes, why he's not actually exploiting the opinion polls showing that Brexit is now not supported by the majority of the public. I think he's just playing it safe in the belief that unless he makes any colossal mistakes or misjudgments, that the feeling of it's time for a change and the Tory divisions will simply mean that he will win, not by the landslide the polls are suggesting, I imagine, but which would be a Tony Blair level landslide if the polls are reflected. But I think he'll get in with probably at least 25, 30 seat overall majority. And of course, the Lib Dems, who I think will increase their number of seats, and also the SNP will, apart from on independents, will probably vote with Labour on most policies, and so the Conservatives in opposition will probably be facing effectively a sort of 80 or 90 seat majority in real terms, because it's not going to be very often that the Lib Dems or the SNP will be voting against a Labour government in favour of any Tory motions.
Paul, it's been really good having your thoughts tonight. Really appreciate you spending a Saturday night with us. Thank you, Paul Connew, former editor of the Sunday Mirror. Well, Coming up, we've got a full roundup of tomorrow morning's Sunday papers. So don't go away. We'll see you in 3.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Right, welcome back. It's 10:31, so a time for a full roundup of tomorrow morning's papers, hot off the press. Right, let's have a look at what is going on at the moment. Right, The Independent are leading with Brexit blow to Downton weddings. No, eyewitnesses reveal violence and self-harm in a chaotic asylum system. The Sunday Telegraph, as we have just been discussing Truss, I was brought down by the left-wing economic establishment, as she writes in the Sunday Telegraph. Also, the Sunday Express, lives at risk after cancer plan is ditched. Doctors and charity warn loss of a 10-year strategy will water down a fight for a cure. On the front of the Sunday Mirror, my hell as Tory MP's slave, including, which we might discuss, I think Richard's keen to, pair-given bizarre avocado demands. The Daily Star leads with glitter brawls, screaming locals at his bail hostel. I've also got the Sun on Sunday. I took Harry's virginity. We were discussing this one a little bit earlier on. Rupert Everett has claimed that that claim is wrong in Harry's book, Spare. Look, this is all to be discussed, panel, OK? With me, my fabulous panel. Lizzie, thank you very much indeed. We've got Fred and also Richard Fairbrass, yes. Right said Fred with us. Right, so let's start then at The Independent. Eyewitnesses reveal violence and self-harm in a chaotic asylum system. Asylum seekers were handcuffed and restrained after self-harming in scenes of desperation at a controversial migrant processing centre. I mean, on the one hand, you know, we always have to remember that these are desperate people who have, I always think, although we can get annoyed at how many people potentially have come across, they have paid good money to sit in a dinghy to come across the English Channel in treacherous conditions, risking their lives. So they are desperate to get out and to come here, and they're all here. And then you hear these human stories that brings it all really down to a human level. It's a problem we need to solve, but in these centres, it must be horrible, don't you think, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, any bad treatment they receive is indefensible. But we've got ourselves into this position. Governments have repeatedly, for years and years and years, failed to get to grips with this. Whether it's the European Court of Human Rights is at fault here, or I don't know. But there seems to be no willingness to deal with this properly. And if you look at a map of the UK, there's a map of the UK, and it lists every hotel where the migrants are kept. You cannot see the mainland of this country for all the hotels that are full up. And there's a hotel near me which is full up. And I think there's more going on here than we care to imagine. But any bad behaviour by the authorities within these camps can't be defended at all. No.
So this is a problem, right? We've got all these people coming across, and it was like 40,000 last year, compared to like 300 a few years ago. So it's out of control. Lots of people coming here that we have no idea who they are. Of course, it's costing us, but also the number of human beings is crazy. How do we stop it? How do we stop it? I have an idea. What do you think, Fred?
Well, porous borders, I don't think porous borders benefit anybody, because I think the people that come over end up disappointed, poorly treated. With immigration or migration, it should be organic. This forced migration, which I think this policy is, creates a bottleneck, and I think creates a lot of distrust within local communities, a lot of distrust between local communities and new arrivals. I think how we fix it. Well, clearly that's got to be government policy, but we don't have a government, really, do we? And we certainly don't seem to have many very, very effective policies. So I'm not sure. All I do know is that this mass immigration doesn't benefit either the people coming in or the communities they go to at the moment, because it's forced. That's my opinion.
What do you think?
Well, it's a really difficult situation, because on the one hand, these people are hearing back home there's plenty of work in the UK, because there's all these jobs that need to be filled in the hospitality industry, pubs, bars, restaurants, cleaners. You cannot get a cleaner for love nor money. So they're hearing that there's all this work coming over, but somehow it has to be controlled. People have to be processed. I don't want rapists and murderers to be able to come into this country very, very easily. And I think that, you know, I remember years ago, my husband was in the building trade, and his right-hand man would screen people coming over because his brother was in the police to make sure they weren't criminals. Why isn't that happening at the borders? Why are the borders so porous and open that can happen? Look, I'm the daughter of immigrants. I've got nothing against, but people have to be properly processed, as my mother was, as my father was. I remember when he was naturalised, a detective came to the house and said, would you fight for the country? Are you patriotic? We were made to stand up. I was telling you, during the Queen's speech, there was so much respect. So it's not that I'm against it, it's just that it's out of control.
It is,
and we don't have enough, you know, the national health is on its knees. We've got a problem in the schools, and we've got a problem in the housing. And all these people keep arriving. Now, I think that we can take maybe up to 40,000 a year. 40,000 years, because I think that the work is there, but they need to be properly managed. Any kind of, I completely agree with you, any kind of abuse is appalling, but the problem is they're probably overwhelmed. You know, they're overwhelmed, and it's costing so much money.
Isn't surely one of the real problems here? If you're going to solve this, you've got to get to the root of it, and the root is these poor people are being they're paying like 5,000 quid. You need to find the people that are trafficking them. Send in our special force, I have to say, and somehow just find those people and sort them out. But also, if you nipped it there at the bud, they couldn't get across.
In Australia, they're extremely tough.
They are.
They go out, They got the boats, they give them a really good sturdy boat, they sink the dodgy one, and they escort them back. And it's just, I just think that people just know that it's extremely easy to come. And on the other hand, we need to go to these people and say, are any of you doctors? Are you accountants? Are you engineers in your country? Let's fast track these people because we need them. We need we need nurses. They make brilliant nurses. So that also should be happening. You know, there are these jobs available. You can apply for them, but you need to be properly processed.
Now, I know you want to get in, Richard, but let's just bring in another story here that we were discussing earlier on. Truss, I was brought down by left wing.
Good old Liz.
Liz Truss, talking the Sunday Telegraph. Looking, I've got to say, just a bit too smug for my liking on the front of that one. No, really, after sort of the damage, you wonder in a way how you show your face. But maybe they are so thick-skinned, they just don't care anymore.
Well, I think you've got to be really thick-skinned to be a politician in the first place.
Correct.
We did a blog with Majid Nawaz, and what he said was that he heard that the city was betting against her even prior to her election.
OK.
Now, I personally think that I don't know whether it's left-wing, I don't know what it was, but there was what they've got in number 10 is exactly what they wanted, which is a WF stooge who will rank up taxes and break this country. That's what I think is happening. And when it goes back to the immigration thing, why is it still happening? Because they want it to happen. They don't want to deal with it.
Do you believe that?
Absolutely, I believe it. Absolutely.
But what good does it do?
Because what they want
it creates is negative press.
Yeah, they don't care about negative press. These people are on another agenda. They don't care about anything. They don't care about anything. No, they've been pumping poison into people for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever. They don't care about us. They just do not. And it's a long. We were talking about inspirational stuff. When was the last time you watched a leader in this country talk in an inspirational way and make people feel good about this country? Never.
I mean, that certainly, I remember sort of doing one of my monologues a couple of months ago that was about leaders in the 60s and obviously JFK saying, let's go to the moon. And just thinking there were, we've had leaders in the past that had really big ideas and try to have a really big agenda. And at the moment, it's like day to day.
But, look, who would be a politician? Because, look, the amount of cynicism against politicians...
Created by themselves. Created by themselves, absolutely.
But who would go, as a young person, who would go into politics? Really? Because you get torn down. And I think, there are certain people... I think Rory Stewart is amazing.
That's why he's not. That's not why he's not working in the House of Commons.
Well, no,
because he's too
if you listen to him talking about the brutality of being a politician, it's very, very tough. And I think that personally, with Liz Truss, I was half feeling a little bit sorry for thinking maybe she's got mental health issues. Maybe poor woman. Everyone's and look at her now. Look at her. Look, she's doing fabulously. She's setting herself up to do all those. To go to America, to do all those talks that she gets paid, she will get paid thousands.
Wasn't she recently back there? Didn't she get the thumbs up from the IMF?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Isn't that part? Hasn't that triggered this?
And
going back very, very quickly to what Neil was saying about.
I have to say, this is going to be. There are many who would have said that the Conservative Party was all about low taxes.
Yes.
Right, and she was trying to put a policy in there that was going, let's try and have some growth and some lower taxes.
But she did not take everybody with her,
That's true.
She did not take people with her. She did not listen to all the bodies that normal people, all of the governments go through. She did not, and the markets, in the end, didn't trust her. It was so fast. It was so aggressive that she didn't take the markets with her.
So why would the IMF give her the thumbs up now? What would be the reason for that happening?
I've got no idea why they would.
Yes, God.
It did. Look, let's move on to another story, only because, this is like chalk and cheese, isn't it, really? We're going to go from that onto The Sun on Sunday, which is, we can now put up on screen. So this is another story that was breaking. Rupert Everett said he found another mistake in Harry's book, Spare. A lady's come forward saying, I took Harry's virginity.
Honestly.
Really? Not really. Are we actually discussing it now on the front page?
I want to see the receipt.
Well, no. Rupert Everett says, I know who it was now. How does he know? Was he there? I mean, really, you have to know.
Peeping Tom.
No, this is a whole slightly crazy thing. With everything that's going on, The Sun on Sunday, it's a slightly crazy one. But there you go. We know we're talking about it, and it'll be a good bit of tittle-tattle for Sundays.
It's a bit of
briefly,
fun.
your thoughts on this whole affair?
Well, I just find him so disappointing. I really do. I mean, this guy could be a British... I really do think he could be a kind of British hero if he'd just done the job. You know? I really do. I think this country needs people to roll their sleeves up and do the work. And
you said a word there that actually parents say to their kids that really hurts when you go, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah.
but disappointing is that I know what you mean. Fred, what do you think?
I find...
Were you there? Do you know the answer to this?
Yeah, I've got photographic evidence.
And Alexa. You had Alexa there at some.
Alexa was in the room. She helped me out. I mean,
Alexa, who's banging Harry? Who is it?
Yes. That would be good.
That'd be a great question. I'm going to go home and ask tonight, I have to say.
Who did he lose his
Lizzie, your thoughts on this one, please?
Oh, my God. Well, what can I say that's not been said? It's just, you know, he's making a fool of... I've tried to defend them so many times. I defended them on Sky News. I try to see it from their point of view. But when you're getting paid 100 million quid for the Netflix series, I kind of lose sympathy because I just think... And when he was talking and he said, you know, my brother came and he hit me and then, you know, I fell and I broke my necklace. He's been in Afghanistan! You know, he's like, he's like, oh, I broke my necklace and then I fell into the dog bowl, which is where you should have stayed.
I fell into the dog bowl.
He did, that's what he said, though.
My youngest daughter at the moment, she's 16, Martha, and she's listening to his audio version of the book, and she was playing me some stuff today. There are some cringeworthy parts, and honestly, it's reading it's one thing, listening to it, oh my God.
Is he reading it? He's reading it.
Oh, it's just shocking.
Oh,
anyway,
he does that, does he?
More from the papers next, plus have we fallen out of love with film? No, we love it, but we'll tell you why we're talking about it. And are you prepared to eat bugs for breakfast tomorrow morning? We will see you in 3.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess I've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Oh, welcome back with me until 11 o'clock. My fabulous panel tonight on fine form. Iconic pop duo Right Said Fred. Both Fred and Richard Fairbrass are here live in the studio. And top political and social commentator Lizzie Zita. Now, here's a lovely one for your Saturday night. Last week, the EU announced that house crickets and powdered mealworm larvae may... Great if you can say it, may be used in the production of several food staples, including pizza, bread, biscuits and pasta. Yeah. Bugs must be on the label, of course, but exactly how clear that labelling actually will be remains to be seen. My bet is on the critters being hidden in the small print alongside the E numbers and the additives. Insects are a source of protein, of course, and more sustainable to produce than meat and dairy, so the argument goes. So can we expect similar rulings to follow in Britain? You might not know it, but insects are already consumed here in the form of carmine, a widely used food colouring that makes good use of crushed up critters. And will my lovely panel here be saving the planet, apparently, by having bugs for breakfast?
No.
No, I've had crabs. Is that the same thing?
I just find them a little more crunchy, to be fair, but there you go. So, yeah. So, look, has any of you ever eaten bugs?
Yes.
He has.
Where have you eaten bugs?
Street food in Soweto.
And?
Disgusting.
OK.
It was very, very powdery. And the guys who were looking after us found it sort of hysterical that I was going to be kind of sick, really. It was really harsh on the tongue. Maybe you get used to it, maybe, but I don't want to get used to it.
When I was in the Ivory Coast, I was doing a job there for Unilever. We went into the jungle, deep in the jungle. It was an amazing day. And I saw a little girl with a baby strapped onto her back. She was looking after her little brother, and she was only about 5, picking up bugs and giving them, feeding them to her little brother. And he was not quite happily eating them. I thought, well, it's protein. It's, you know, even though I was like, oh, my God, that child is feeding her little brother bugs. But it's what you're used to, isn't it? It's
Also,
what you're used to. And some of the foods that we have today, 20 years ago, listen, I'm in town, people say, hey, you eat worms. Even the teachers at school would say that about Italian food. Now, you know, everybody eats it, but...
With bugs, I would feel much more relaxed about it if I saw it on the menu of Davos, on the menu at the House of Commons, Bilderberg. They would never.
With a nice sign of the
critter burgers. A muck critter or something like that.
A muck critter.
All this stuff is just for us proles.
Yes.
That's what I think. It's like in you get John Kerry flying around the world in his private jet, telling us all not to drive cars. That's what it is. It's an elitist thing. They'll all be having their Japanese beef, and we'll be eating bugs.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a good source of protein, though, we do know that feeding the planet is a slight problem, although there's an awful lot of food wastage. If it can be made cheaply, easily and efficiently, is there a problem with it as a source of protein?
As a choice, but not as an alternative.
Exactly.
Not as a replacement.
Compulsion,
Fair enough.
Yeah,
OK.
yeah.
Well, let's get off bugs, because I tell you what, it's putting me off. I fancy a kebab on the way home. Exactly. Film icon Joan Collins thinks Hollywood has gone boring. She opened up about missing the golden age of Hollywood and thinks movies now are just a bit depressing, confusing, preachy and too long. Avatar, 3 hours 20? Nah. She even goes on as far as criticising prestigious award ceremonies like the Oscars, the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards for their boring chosen winners. So is she right? Have we fallen out of love with film? Has it all become a bit too safe? What do you think, Lizzie?
Well, I just think that it's become, you know, we've seen every story now. We've become more sophisticated in a way, but some of it is really so boring. Personally, I don't like going to the cinema anymore because people eat, not bugs, but and you're trying to enjoy the film. You know, and people are like downing chips.
Yeah.
Oh, what's happening over there? I wasn't following. What's happened?
Yeah.
It's like, shut up! I'm trying to watch the movie.
Exactly.
I prefer to wait and see it on Netflix or buy it at home.
There are some movies there, let's be honest, on the big screen.
Amazing.
So I find it an experience.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
you go
I agree.
there,
That's true.
the sound, everything now, the experience you get. And cinemas have had to up their game because we've got Netflix and we've got Apple, we've got all the streaming platforms.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
So you've got to make it a better experience.
Yes.
And they
Yeah,
have,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
nice big seat, comfy. Everything's
Yeah.
much better about the cinema.
It is.
It's expensive to go to the cinema.
It's really,
really
Do you love movies?
expensive.
And what was the last movie you watched?
Oh my God, I can't remember. We live together, you know. And we watch a lot of Netflix. We watch a lot of foreign stuff. A lot of Argentinian, Spanish,
Why?
French, all that stuff. And I like binge watching. Well, we all like binge watching, so we can just watch a whole series over 3 or 4 days and stuff. So the last film I watched, I actually can't remember. I'm not a big fan of Hollywood. I think that all the teeth are too even. And we tried watching this thing about the outback. Do you remember?
Yellowstone?
Yellowstone.
Yep.
You know, and the women are pretty and they've all got perfect teeth and it's just not believable.
The worst thing I saw recently was Glass Onion. I thought that was just
oh my
appalling.
God, that's what I was
with Daniel Craig.
Yeah,
terrible.
I thought it was appalling.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So my kids loved it.
Did they?
No.
It's funny, isn't it? I guess
watched
everything
it.
is subjective, isn't it? Okay.
It is, very much.
I'm going to have to say thank you, panel, for being lovely tonight. Lizzie, thank you. Yeah, and that really was. Shut up! Shut up! We've got to go. It's kebab time and beer. Fred, thank you. Richard, always charming to have you on. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Dolan will be back next week. You'll be pleased. Headliners is up next. I hope you have a very, very good evening. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.
That was fun, guys.
Hello again. As we look through Saturday night, we are going to see any rain clearing away. That will then leave things fairly chilly first thing on Sunday morning, but through the day itself, it's looking largely sunny. If we look at the bigger picture, and we have this front that's been making its way southeastwards across the UK through the day, as it's a cold front.